Thank you for joining me. I'm John Razimus, and in this video, I'm compiling a video. That's what I'm doing in this video. But I'm going to be talking about Bob Lazar. Currently, this compilation of this version of this Bob Lazar special is at 54%. This is the fifth or sixth version of me editing and re-editing. I've had some issues with here and there. It doesn't work. We're going to be talking about Bob Lazar. I'm going to try to invite some guests. I don't know if they're going to show up. I have been researching Bob Lazar for off and on, just as a hobby, looking for S4, looking for that secret base with satellite imagery to no success. It's not visible. I see people say, "Oh, do you see the lines? Do you see the lines on the side of the mountain?" There's supposedly a secret base 15 miles south of Groom Lake, 15 miles south of Area 51. I don't think it exists. There are a couple mines. I think there's a Kelly mine, which I think has recently been acquired by the government. Some family owned a mine for like over 100 years, and it happened to be between supposedly where S4 is and Area 51. There was just a mine right there and a family owning it. There's another mine over here. I don't know what the name of that one is, but in between these mines, Papoose Lake is a testing bombing range. And it's so radioactive, the last individual to walk across it, he passed away, I believe, 3 years after walking across Papoose Lake because it is that radioactive. So, yikes. People are planning on hiking out there to Area 51. If you take the wrong path, not only are there signs, but if you happen to sneak around the Papoose Lake direction, you're going to be sneaking on sand that is so radioactive, you will die of radiation poisoning, of cancer. And it is not good. So be warned. I'm going to invite some people to the stream. I don't know if they're going to show up. It's a very late on the fly stream. Let me get the code. And if you ever want to be invited onto this stream in the future, just send me a message on Twitter. Perhaps, one day, just have to have some trust. There has to be some trust built up. You can't just randomly pop on my stream. It has to be mutual trust. I don't think my stream is too exclusive. Pretty much anyone can come on. And we will see what happens. We will see. Okay. Someone just tweeted me. They said, I tweeted out, I deleted the 2 mentions of a particular podcast that happens to be the #1 podcast in the world or YouTube easily. And I heard, after searching and searching, what's wrong with my last video? Why do I have to keep editing it? There are perhaps key searches, key words, key phrases. I don't know. Perhaps Area 51 is a hot phrase right now. I wouldn't be surprised if the U.S. Air Force said, "Hey, YouTube, tone down those Area 51 videos. We don't want an epidemic on our hands." So that's realistic and possible. But I mentioned a particular podcast, JRE. I'm not going to actually even say it. I mentioned it twice. And then I did a couple searches. And people said even talking about the podcast and not showing a single clip, just talking about it, they've received takedowns on their videos, just talking about it. I was like, what? That's a little extreme. And the guy seems to be very open-minded, seems to be very chill and casual and cool. He talks about his DMT experiences all the time. He has a great open mind. But when you become number one, he has a management YouTube channel network that he joined, and apparently it's not not the best. All I can say is I played a 30-second clip of that podcast in this video, and I got it before I even fully uploaded it. I got the strike immediately. I was like, what? So I took it out, I deleted it, and I added a still image, and I voice acted underneath it. 100% copyright, okay, A-okay, ad friendly. And someone said, you can just slow it down, you can just stretch it and change. I don't want to stretch it and change. You can get strikes by stretching and changing. The rules, I'm very familiar with the rules. And 30-second clip talking about it before, talking about it after is 100% okay. But if you don't want to go through the red tape, put a still image and voice act it. That is the safest possible route. I took still images of the movie The Shining. I'm a huge fan of The Shining. I don't know if you can see The Shining poster behind me over here, but I'm a huge fan of The Shining, and I planned on making like 10 Shining videos, but people already did it. People already said it. But I made a Shining video talking about Stanley Kubrick's daughter had a theory, and I'm going to take her theory and I'm going to listen to it. She happened to work very closely with her dad. She made a documentary on The Shining, and she interviewed everyone on set. And you can see that in the DVD extras. And I think her opinion might be valid, considering the fact that she worked with her dad every day on The Shining, and she worked with her dad on Full Metal Jacket. She did the soundtrack to that movie. And her theory was her dad might be a little bit psychic. And maybe he liked the Stephen King novel so much because maybe her dad does have flashes and can see things. I mean, people having flashes and seeing things. I have flashes and see things occasionally here and there. Maybe it's just a daydream. Maybe it's a vision. Maybe it's just an idea. I mean, I understand you can interpret it a million different ways, but Warner Brothers, the point of this whole convoluted story is Warner Brothers said, hey, we don't like that video. We're going to take it down. I was like, nope, it's just still images and me talking underneath the still images, copyright 100% legal, okay, A-okay. And they're like, you're right. We're wrong. You're right. So even Warner Brothers, a behemoth, you can win. You can win. But some guy responded to my taking out of the particular podcast. He said, reminds me of before I was woke years ago listening to Art Bell, rest in peace, as he talked with Malachi Martin, ex-Jesuit priest author, and Area 51 Bob Lazar or Philadelphia Experiment, good old days, and not a clue how widespread our government problems, etc. were. I have zero idea what he's talking about. I'll like it, but no idea what he's talking about. So, did someone join us? Hey.
Hey, John.
How's it going, Brandon? Brandon joined us. I would invite other people, but I don't know if they're even awake. But if you know of anyone else we can invite, feel free. I hooked up the old lights.
I love it. I love that.
Hey, are you on the West Coast or the East Coast?
West Coast.
Okay, so it's not too late, right?
Nope. 10, 12.
I mean, it's not that late. It's only 10:19. It's not bad.
Yeah.
I got this glow-in-the-dark Area 51 shirt. and it does glow in the dark. It's from 1996, and I walked outside, and it still glows really good. So higher quality back then. But the reason this 1996 shirt exists is because of Bob Lazar. In 1989, he came forward, talked about flying saucers at Area 51, and immediately people started merchandising it and creating T-shirts, mugs, such as this one. This mug is dated 1995, and this is the height of the Bob Lazar 90s UFO bonanza with all the alien stuff. He didn't cash out on it, although people did say he made a VHS tape. So sure, he sold a couple hundred VHS tapes, big deal, you know. He was trying to get the truth out from his perspective. And I've thoroughly been researching Bob Lazar. So do you have anything you want to say about the topic for tonight?
I do, but you continue on. I think you're doing a good job.
Okay.
Because I think I was one of the very few people to actually see a preview of, because it did upload, but I don't know, talk about it. So I did see
you could talk about the version you saw probably was version 2 or 3. And I noticed there was a glitch in it. About 20 minutes in, the audio was off because I noticed the volume was too low. So I copied the volume, popped it in, lowered it, and then upon having to edit out all this little podcast stuff or words that I thought might have had some effect, I cut out a few things, and during the cutting out, there's a feature on Sony Vegas where if you don't click a button, it'll move all the layers in the wrong direction, and that's what happened. So I fixed it, and currently this is the final version of part 1. It's at 92%. I added the hand scanner segment, and I added a new S4 segment, and I added another alien segment, which you probably saw in that version. So what what are your thoughts? What do you think about it?
I don't want to spoil it, really.
Okay.
I thought it was like it. I say this a lot, and I'm not trying to, blow smoke or whatever people say. But every time, I'm always, I think I'm going to get something that I expect. And I expect it to be good. I expect it to be well researched, especially when you say so and you're onto something. But it always hits something like a different level of some pattern that you recognize that no one else has for whatever reason. And so it's really great, and I can't wait for people to see it. I really can't.
All right. Thank you very much. I'm just going to tweet out the live stream because I don't know if people can see it. I'm going to tweet it out. But Bob Lazar, if anyone, I'm sure you're familiar, many people are familiar with him. I've been Googling him, and someone from overseas, someone from Europe said, "Is Bob Lazar famous in America?" Yes, he's super famous in America. He's one of the more popular guests on Art Bell. He's one of the most famous conspiracy UFO whistleblowers, supposedly, self-proclaimed physicist of all time. I think he definitely is as smart as a physicist. We just don't have the evidence with the school records. He claims they were deleted by the government, like in the movie Men in Black, where they can just delete all the files. But the problem is, and many have pointed this out before I ever even bothered researching, they said it's really hard to delete paper trails because in the 80s, computers were secondary. Paper was still the main way. Wow. Don't you love it when Twitter forwards you to a page you didn't click on? I'm trying to tweet out the live stream, and Twitter forwards me to a page. It might be my mouse. Maybe my mouse or my trackball needs to be replaced.
It's okay.
But, okay. So people on Twitter now can hopefully see. And if anyone has any questions, I see David Blaine, the famous magician, is here again.
Yeah. Yeah.
I see someone named Tatkana Peaches. Why is it radioactive? I am late to the party. Why is what radioactive? Oh, okay. The Papoose Lake. See, Bob Lazar says, and this is a huge piece of the puzzle. It's a huge clue, whether his entire story, and people might say, oh, maybe he purposely gave the wrong locations. I mean, maybe he gave the wrong locations, but he claimed right next to Papoose Lake was a mountain, and he's even said that's the mountain. And that mountain happens to be right next to one of the most radioactive bombing test ranges in the world. I mean, we're talking the nuclear bomb was probably tested there in the 50s and 60s. I don't know. And people say the half-life, blah, blah, blah. All I know is some guy in 1997 named, his name is Jerry Freeman. He walked across it because he's a fan of the history of the area. He researched the 49ers and the pioneers, but specifically the 49ers in chasing gold. They're going west trying to get gold. And he was looking for artifacts. He's looking for, I don't know, just whatever, maybe the wagon. I don't even know if the 49ers would use wagons, but I guess maybe some of them would. It's a little bit past the wagon ages, isn't it?
Oregon Trail.
It's a little bit past the Oregon Trail, yeah, but I'm sure some of them used wagons, the 49ers. I don't know.
Yeah.
But he's looking for like a little nail or a little anything. He's looking for any evidence. And he's probably digging up the dirt and looking at it, not knowing that that dirt is extremely radioactive. He died about 3 years after that journey. That's why we don't have huge lectures of him right now. But he did talk about it. He did have a journal, and you can see his journal online for free. It's basically on a website. A journalist posted it. I believe a local journalist posted it. And it's really sad because he died of cancer, but he got that cancer because of radiation poisoning.
Wow.
Because that's how radioactive that bombing test range is.
I believe it. It's true. I mean, I know one of my family members works on the high power lines. And speaking of someone that does Joe Rogan supercuts and gets...
Okay, don't say the J R. If you say his name, really? The algorithm goes, whoa, what? Let's take a listen. So you better say something positive. Joe Rogan's the best. It's the best podcast in the world. I love it.
I love him. And I've met him. And I just want to say he did Taekwondo with my brother. He taught Taekwondo in Boston. He's from Boston. And he's just the best. And Bob Lazar is just terrific. All right. Anyway, sorry. Yeah.
So yeah, what were you gonna say though? Did I cut off your story?
Yeah, I think so. It's okay. What was I gonna say? Oh well.
So I have been researching Bob Lazar for the past month straight. That doesn't sound like much, but for the past 20 years, I've been, keeping up with his story. I mean, I've heard about the pine-smelling fluid he drank, which was yellow. It was a yellow pine-smelling fluid. I remember tiny details like that. People forget. People forget those tiny details. I saw a video by Linda Moulton Howe, very famous paranormal researcher or just researcher of oddities in general, UFOs, crop circles.
Yeah.
She's, according to Dan Aykroyd, she's the #1 crop circle expert in the world. I mean, what does it take to be the #1 crop circle expert.
She
I don't know.
believes in psychic Sasquatch.
Yeah, she believes a lot of stuff. I remember when birds died. Some blackbirds died. And Linda Moulton Howe said, it's the aliens. You know, blackbirds die all the time. And aliens is probably the least likely possibility for their death. That's just me. And I'm not making okay.
You know?
Dan Aykroyd also said she's the cattle mutilation expert in the world. Now, I have to admit, that's a little peculiar. That's a little more peculiar than blackbirds.
Right.
When you see, you know, the chupacabra or the alien incisions or whatever is going on, that's pretty freaky stuff. I wouldn't want to be an expert in that, but she supposedly researches all that. You know, I respect her hustle. She definitely researches the paranormal in many different fields. But she said a green-colored pine-smelling fluid. No, Linda Moulton Howe, it wasn't green. See, trees are green, so you're thinking it's green. But Bob specifically said yellow-colored pine-smelling fluid. So I remember the tiniest of details, unless Bob slipped up and changed it to green when he was talking to her, because she talked directly with Bob Lazar. Maybe he slipped up. I don't know.
Well, that's the problem. Is like someone like John Lear, who I think you used very well, and people will be really surprised at where you got that and what you did. It's really cool. I won't ruin it, but it's awesome. And John Lear is talking about Bob Lazar. He just is crazy, but he shows like a drawing, and you show the drawing of the map and of you know, these two aliens that he saw and whatnot. Mm-hmm. And the one with the two people. But yeah, you remember these tiny details that end up becoming really important. But the problem is that John Lear will say something like, "Oh well, Bob says later on that it didn't really happen. He didn't really see a gray alien." And it's like, well, so then, you know, either he did or he's covered, you know, completely. If he's telling the truth or if he's lying, it's like, or if he gets it wrong next time, he's just trying to be a shill. I thought that was fascinating that I'm not going to ruin it. I don't want to ruin it, man, but I got so many questions to ask about the actual video. There's one possibility that you put out there that's fascinating, and I think deserves its a whole new episode, and it has to do with, I'll just say, psychological warfare angle.
Oh yeah, I mean that's a legitimate real memo. That's recently been declassified, I guess, in the past maybe in the past 10 years, whatever, I don't know. But it said that the government was like, you know what? Flying saucers can really be used as psychological warfare. And I was like, whoa, that's kind of freaky. That could mean Project Blue Book was the entire thing was to get people to think, ooh, there's a secret file. And then, whoops, there it is. And then the whole thing could have been just for psychological. I understand they are looking at oddities in space and in the sky and blah, blah, blah. But they're also pushing a Roswell and a Bob Lazar agenda, whether it's true or not. They're pushing it because it helps them. It's a win-win situation. And for people that don't know how and why it's a win-win situation, I'll break it down super quick. You already know. It's pretty simple logic. The enemies think we have anti-gravity spaceships with laser beams with Nikola Tesla death ray technology that we can blow up their entire country in 1 second with flying saucers. And we could say, oh, it was the aliens. Or if that doesn't exist, it scares them. Either way, it's a win-win situation. It scares them whether it's real or not. And I've seen plenty of triangles. People have triangle sightings. And people say, ooh, it doesn't look like a stealth bomber. It was perfectly triangular. Must have been aliens. For all we know, it is us, but the government likes the alien angle because then the U.S. wasn't invading their airspace. It was just aliens doing it off the hook. So there are many different angles that the government would say that's really smart. Say it's aliens every time. We get off the hook every time. It puts fear in our enemies. They think we have a super advanced technology. They hear all the stories, the Bob Lazar stuff, and they think Area 51 isn't just a flight test range and then a bombing range not too far away, but they think we have a contract with an advanced being race from a billion years more civilized than us, more advanced than us. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's
Well, you know what's interesting, John, is like, do you ever listen to Annie Jacobson?
no. Who's that?
She was on Joe Rogan, I want to say like a month before Bob Lazar was.
Mm-hmm.
And she wrote a book recently. She's done Google Talks. She's taken very seriously as one of the academics of the UFO field and so on. She's done some pretty good research and stuff. And her whole take on the Bob Lazar is exactly what you say. That it possibly, like, he possibly saw a doll or, you know, or something, or he is actually, this narrative is actually being pushed and is useful. He's a useful idiot, if you will, by the government, because she believes that Roswell, and she says she has insiders and documents to back this up, and it makes sense, Roswell was the Russians sending out a biological created, genetically altered creation. Now, all right, you got to look at I haven't looked at the evidence completely, but it's worth checking out. And they shot it. It went from a mothership, and they shot 3 projectiles, and one of them was that Roswell thing that crashed, and it was used as a psychological warfare tactic by the Russians on the United States. And then the United States said, "Okay, we gotta up our game here," or something like that. Who knows what the real story is? But it's fascinating. We do know that they're using the alien thing as a like with the government for, you know, their type of disclosure. Tom DeLonge, for example, here's something that no one really picked up on really much, is that Bob Lazar, with Tom DeLonge about when he went on Joe Rogan, said that, and I'm sorry about that, but there's no way to go around it. He said that
Just say JRE.
JRE. Okay, JRE. When he was on JRE, he said that he was going to release a Bob Lazar documentary. I don't know if people remember that.
How long ago was that?
This was when he was on JRE.
Like a couple years ago?
Yeah, when he did he's never been back.
Okay, yeah. Okay, that one time, yeah.
And I think maybe he was on Jay Fade to that other show, that guy, and he was on that show, and he said that he was working with Bob Lazar, and I got a book coming out with him and all that. So To the Stars Academy, which is also trying to push its own with Tom DeLonge, its own sort of like narrative. I think that was a way of them also getting the Bob Lazar, because obviously Tom DeLonge and To the Stars Academy failed miserably.
So what happened? Did the deal fall through, and then he got the other guy, Beardman?
I don't know. I don't really follow it too deeply, but he must have, right? So then that's when he got Beardman, and then Beardman jumped in and said, "I'll do it." And I think if you follow the money, there might be a connection between the people in the Tom DeLonge To the Stars Academy camp and the Bob Lazar camp. Check it out. I mean, I just think it's worth.
I mean, I trust that Bob Lazar did give the money to local science for the premiere of the documentary. They premiered it, I think, in where Bob lives. And he gave the $2,000 to local schools, to local science departments. I trust that. But that's the small picture. You know, the bigger picture, you don't know. There's no way to trace it if friends are doing all the work and you're just saying, I'm not touching that. I don't know. It's hard to prove. You have to get the trail. I'm not going to assume it, but Bob is definitely a cash cow for somebody, right? For someone.
Yeah.
I think Beardman has almost a religious cult mentality about it, but it really reminds me of Tom DeLonge. You know, they both.
Interesting.
I think it's somewhat of a Hollywood religion. I don't like that church or that church. I don't like that UFO cult, but just UFOs in general is interesting. And David Blaine asks a question. What about UFOs and the occult? Most definitely, I've made a couple of videos on that. And he asks, how can they be physical flying saucers if it's just spirits? And
hey, Sam Shadow.
So Sam is with us. How's it going,
Perfect
Sam?
timing.
Doing good, guys. Doing good. Thank you for the invite, John.
Yeah, no problem.
It's
so
great
we're talking.
Oh,
yeah, it's great to see you. We're talking about the occult, and you can chime in if you want.
And UFOs.
And UFOs. Well, we just brought up this.
Right.
It's mostly UFOs, flying saucers, blah, blah, blah. Bob Lazar. But someone asks, if flying saucers are spirits and occult connected, how can they be physical? How can it be a physical craft? I mean, I think there are physical craft, and I think spirits can occasionally shape-shift and fly in the sky. I think it's two different things can exist. I have an open mind.
right.
But I personally have never seen a flying saucer. I've seen lights in the sky, kind of like Beardman. Beardman was put on the spot by Larry King. He said, have you seen UFOs? And Beardman said, I've seen lights in the sky that I can't explain. And I'm in the same boat. I've seen some pretty amazing light shows. But a light show can be created by the same people that do the laser show, at the planetarium, theoretically speaking. I mean.
Sure.
But so what are your thoughts on UFOs, flying saucers, Sam?
So that's a really good question. I remember I guess it's been about almost 2 years ago now. I did an interview with Michael Aquino, who he actually worked at Area 51 for a brief amount of time. And whenever I asked him his thoughts on UFOs, he told me, well, we see things with the telescope all the time that we can't, necessarily, classify it as this or that. So sure, there's UFOs, but as far as a spaceship or a little green man in a saucer, he said it doesn't exist. But like you said, I mean, I have an open mind. I mean, I think I generally lean more towards your philosophy that aliens are more like spirits. That's what I tend to personally believe. But I mean, who knows? There are things in the sky that we can't really identify or explain. Who am I to say what it is or what it isn't? But yeah, it is a fascinating subject. I noticed you mentioned Tom DeLonge a minute ago. I remember him back from like his Blink-182 days. I'm not like a really big fan of his UFO stuff, but I remember our friend Baz showed me a very strange book recently about UFOlogy. Guess who wrote a book with Tom DeLonge?
Peter Lavenda.
Yep, you knew, huh?
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
That's
Peter
interesting.
Lavenda.
So what's the book about?
Called Secret Machines, Gods, Man, and War, or something like that. And it basically takes the stance that all these extra-dimensional entities, kind of like the Collins elite worldview, which is that they're negative. Every spirit is negative. Even the even angels are negative. Mm-hmm. They go back to the Bible. They say all these interactions that mankind has been having with these so-called angels or so-called demons or so-called UFOs or aliens or gods and goddesses. I think this is the basic thesis: is that this is a threat. This is an invasion. This God, this Yahweh, is really a murderous tyrant of an alien or negative spirit. I'm not saying I believe. I'm just saying this is the theory.
So it's kind of a Gnostic belief in a way.
Yes, very much so. Very much so. So yeah, that's Peter Lavenda for you.
Okay. I mean, I am a suspect of anyone who has telepathic contact with an alien and zero physical contact. It's always telepathic contact.
It's weird.
It's always 0% physical contact. And some lady will say, oh, there was an alien in my bedroom, and he was telepathically telling me to save the oceans and we're cutting down the rainforest, and that alien doesn't really know too much. We already know those things. I mean, sure, save the ocean, don't cut down the rainforest. That's great. But how about some actual information that only an extraterrestrial of extreme advanced technology would know? I'm suspect that it's a spirit. If it's real, if they're not crazy, it's a spirit, if it's non-physical. And then people talk about the blue avians. I think blue avians is kind of a ripoff of other aliens. But if they're real, which they're probably not, they're probably 100% fake. But if they're not fake, it's always telepathic. It's always, I'm going to leave my body and go to the alien world and come back. That is exactly an out-of-body experience where you visit a spirit dimension. That is not going to an alien dimension. That's just a regular dimension of the universe where all spirits can, I guess, float to occasionally here and there, especially after you die,
It's it's an interesting way to look at it, though. Me, Baz, and Saroth recently did a show about Carlos Castaneda, Kenneth Grant, and William S. Burroughs, and we talked a little bit about aliens on there. And I think that specifically Kenneth Grant from the Typhonian Order, when he talks about aliens or UFOs, I don't think he's talking about like a physical thing, like a car you drive or a corporeal being like me and you. But I think what he's talking about, similarly to maybe H.P. Lovecraft, or even in that book Communion, where Whitley Strieber asks the alien to take off his mask and he just can't even describe it. I think what Grant's trying to get at here is he's trying to explain something that's so otherworldly that you can't really put it into words even. So I think that's why they use this word alien, extraterrestrial, and some of these occult contexts. They're not so much talking about aliens in the context that someone like Bob Lazar or even a Corey Good is, but they're talking about it in just a very almost an interaction with a spiritual being that you can't even quite comprehend fully or put into words.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, flying saucers. I was in Sedona. I was in Sedona about 10 years ago, and I went to the Alien store, and it was my favorite store in Sedona, the Alien store. And I went back, and it's gone. It went out of business. It really ticks me off. Ticks me off that he couldn't sell alien stuff anymore, because probably hippies that go to the meditate, they weren't into the alien stuff. I don't know, but he said he saw a jet. No, it was two jets. Was it two jets? He saw two jets flying after a flying saucer in Sedona, and I have to take his word for it. But that's, it would be interesting to see a flying saucer. I've never seen one, so I can't confirm whether they've ever flown in the sky. I've never seen one. I have seen a couple lights. I would say the most bizarre light show I've ever seen was I was camping, and I was in grade school, and we were camping at the Boy Scout camp, but it was boys and girls from our grade school class. And we had like a play thing, and we did that, whatever. And then we're going to I think we roasted marshmallows. And then we're looking up, and there is about 9 lights in the sky. And they look like the end of a spotlight. And you know how a spotlight has a beam up to the Batman signal? Right. They have a beam. There was 0 beam. Only the spotlight circle, but no beam. There was no beam, just the circle. And I couldn't see any craft. I could just see 9 circles dancing in the sky. And I don't know what it was, but the no beam made no sense. I was one of the first kids to notice it. I said, "What the heck is that?" And all the kids looked at it, and all the kids turned on their flashlight to try to reproduce it. and we couldn't. And
Wow.
we're like, what the hell is that? We can't reproduce that. It was not a flashlight. It looked as big as a Hollywood movie premiere spotlight.
Holy shit.
Without the beam times 9. So it was very close and very big. If I had to estimate, I would say it was 1 mile away or half a mile away. Very close. Very close. And it was in the sky. And it danced in a formation which was the same. So that made me think it was a light show, like someone was doing it.
Huh.
And you would think it would shoot off into outer space, but it didn't. It did this for 30 minutes straight. And all the kids got tired of it, and then we went to sleep. And it continued to do it. It never stopped. It stopped, in the morning he was gone, but that was very weird, I think I got the best look of it because I went to take a leak, and I walked up to the outhouse, and I really studied it. And it was 9 circles, but they almost looked flat. They looked like flat circles. If it was a spaceship, the spaceship was cloaked and invisible, and I could only see the underneath. I don't know. It was very bizarre. I have no idea what it was to this day. But it was just lights. It was just lights.
It's crazy that you mentioned it was only like a few miles up from the ground too, because I've seen stuff before that I don't really claim to know what it was, and I don't even think it's that rare. Maybe if people want to try this fun little experiment, they can. But there have been times where I've went outside and just looked at the stars, and it won't happen every night, but every once in a long while you'll see something that looks exactly like a star, and it's way too far off to be a plane, but it's moving across the sky. And it's way too slow to be a shooting star, yet way too fast to be a satellite. I don't know what the hell it is. It just looks like a star that moves.
It sounds to me, it sounds like a satellite. I think, depending on the orbit, some satellites.
Oh,
Brandon, you're live streaming. You're driving.
I gotta bounce. It's all good. I'm going. Okay. You know where I'm going?
Where are you going?
Take a wild guess, my friend.
Oh, you going to
store?
You going to the? You going to the haunted mill?
Oh, maybe I am.
I doubt it.
It's only 10 minutes away.
You're not.
No. I'm going to get laundry.
Okay.
That's the biggest letdown of all. You led us to believe it's like a haunted mill, and you're just going
to prove it. Here's a sign that says "Isla Vista." Next exit. So that's
well,
where I am.
That's a scary place. That's where that guy, yikes.
Oh.
It's UCSB. UCSB.
That's right.
And I see it as Santa Barbara, but they specifically wanted to call it the Isla Vista because Santa Barbara didn't want there to be a famous Santa Barbara, killer. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because it's such a prestigious city, they didn't want to associate themselves with Isla Vista guy
That's funny.
Even though it's like the same place and it's UCSB.
That's hilarious. Wow, I didn't know that. Sure.
Yeah. But so Bob Lazar claimed he had element 115, a very physical object, not some ethereal thing from another dimension, but a physical thing. He claimed he sneaked some of it. And I didn't know how he sneaked some of it until I listened to 1,000 of his interviews. And he has been interviewed easily 20 plus times, even though he claims he rarely does interviews. He's been interviewed probably, I would have to guess, 1 time for every year since he released it. Probably 30 interviews would be my guess if I really had. And in one interview, he said he didn't get the element 115 from Area 51. It would be way too hard, too secret. My dad works at a place where he has a security clearance badge, and he can't take anything home. He can't take his work home with him. His phone has no camera on it because phones with cameras are not allowed at my dad's work. That's top secret.
Oh yeah, when they use that word, like there's top secret, and then there's even above top secret, which that's what Area 51 is, and that's like so serious. I mean, you can't tell anybody. You can't tell your wife or your kids or your family, because you might seriously disappear in the middle of the night.
Yeah, they sign a non-disclosure agreement, and they can probably be fined $10,000 and go to prison. And they're scared of the consequences, so they keep their mouth shut. That's why 99% of the Area 51 employees don't talk. But Bob Lazar claimed he didn't get the element 115 from Area 51 or S4. He claimed he got it from Los Alamos National Labs in New Mexico. He claims S4 contracts with Los Alamos Labs, a place he did work at. But why would Area 51 S4 ship the most valuable element in the world over to New Mexico to have it machined? It's top secret stuff. This is, I mean, it looks like this. It's a copper color and it's a triangle. He claimed that you have to cut it in a big disc, and they stack up the discs, and then they fuse the discs into one thing until you have like a bar, a cylinder of element 115. And then he claims you have to cut it down the middle, like a really convoluted machining process for an extraterrestrial flying saucer fuel. Very weird. The process itself is very weird. But he claimed that during the machining process, he knows the guy that was machining it, and he grabbed one. He's like, yeah. And he took it home. But Los Alamos National Labs does require security clearances, top secret, classified, whatever. And Bob Lazar claims they thought they were making armor, like some new armor, because it's the cover story for the extraterrestrial fuel. And Bob Lazar, and it looks like this. It just looks like this. And Bob Lazar claimed that one triangle, and this is where it sounds like a total BS. He said one triangle can power a flying saucer for 30 years. That's like, what?
Oh, wow. Too bad it doesn't work on cars. We could get rid of fossil fuels by tomorrow, but...
Well, except they only have, at Area 51 S4, they only have 500 pounds of the stuff. That's it. And they can't make more. But they have to machine it. I think if a super top secret facility was going to machine this stuff, they're not going to ship it over to a different state that has a way lower security clearance where anyone can stroll on in and grab some of it, because Los Alamos National Labs requires some security clearance, not the same as Area 51, way lower. And I don't think they'd ship the most valuable element in the world casually on over, because, for example, when Los Alamos Labs ships it back to Area 51 after they machine it, they're going to weigh it, because this element is so rare. It would be worth like $1 trillion per triangle. $1 trillion. Why? Because it's from another planet. It can't be made. It's element 115 in a physical form. We can't produce it. In Moscow, they synthesized a few atoms of element 115. I'm not talking about this fantasy stuff, an actual element that was put on the periodic table, and it dissipated in a few seconds. But because they invented it in Moscow, or they discovered it, or they synthesized it in Moscow, they named it Moscovium. So that's why it's called Moscovium.
We gave it good try, comrade.
And people that think Bob Lazar can see into the future, peer into the future, he claimed on an Art Bell interview. I'm listening to every single Bob Lazar Art Bell interview. Let me think. It's probably the 2002 interview. In the 2002 interview, or maybe it's the 97, but I think it's the 2002. Nope. the 2002 interview, Bob Lazar tells Art Bell that if he had to guess, he would guess that Germany's probably going to synthesize 115 first before anyone else. But nope, he was wrong.
The Russians.
The Russians. People have, yeah, you got something to say?
No, I was just going to add on to that. It's considering it's its own unique element too. That's not something from this world. Somebody would know if anybody attempted to copy it or make a fraud or a fake copy of it, because if they say they just used copper, they could weigh that and be like, okay, well, the mass of this copper is obviously way heavier or way lighter than this element. And
yeah, what I was going to say is Bob took a triangle. When they ship it back to Area 51, they're going to weigh it and know there's a triangle missing. Because if it's the most valuable element on the planet, there's only 500 pounds of it. It's the only thing that can fuel the flying saucers. It would be kind of important. It would be the reason why they wouldn't want to test fly them all the time. Concerning the test flights, Bob Lazar said that he learned the secret test flights of Wednesday nights over Area 51 because he worked there. Proof that he worked there. But I think he went to the local truck stop or the local gas station, the local whatever, the local bar. He went to the local burger joint, and he talked with someone long enough where they said Wednesday nights, and he's like, "Oh, Wednesday nights, okay." It's not proof you worked there. You know what I mean? It's proof he probably hung around the place and talked to someone who notices someone that just takes a smoke break, and they're looking at, and every Wednesday night they notice the test flights, and it's not something that couldn't be obtained from outside the base. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, it's you would, I don't know, you would think that he would try and go off of more than just hearsay. Because, I mean, come on, if he was actually an ex-employee, which I won't lie, I don't know that much about Bob Lazar, or at least as much as you do, but if he was a legit ex-employee, he couldn't get away with talking about that kind of stuff. He would, there wouldn't be a Bob Lazar.
Well, yeah. I could tell you of an actual Area 51 employee who he tried to file a lawsuit, but you fill out so much paperwork that you give away your rights to even work there. But some ex-employee of Area 51, an actual, I think possibly one of the few ex-employees that's real, he said that his job was to stand there while they burn the stealth paint. It's top secret paint that they use to paint the stealth bombers. Okay. And they don't want our enemies to know the formula of this stealth paint because it's like top secret. They probably spent 50 years developing it, and so they had too much of it, or maybe they scraped it off. They probably scraped it off to repaint, whatever the case. Some of this stealth paint is in a pile and they have to burn it. And when this stealth paint is burning, this guy's job is to stand there with a gun or something, and the fumes blew in his face. And
no.
He said that he has some type of toxic, illness. Because he had to inhale stealth paint at Area 51.
What the hell, man?
I think he's going to win the lawsuit, or he already did. There was so much red tape that they said, "Oh, you filed it against the wrong people," because nobody knows who's in charge over there. Nobody. The U.S. Air Force are posted on the signs, but of course, because it's a black budget project, there's 1,000 contractors involved to make it a smokescreen, so you don't know who's in charge. But the one piece of evidence that Bob might have actually worked there is this guy who actually did work there. You can see his face. He says, screw the non-disclosure agreement. I almost died. And I think he's going to get, I think he's going to get $25,000 or $250,000. I don't know, some decent amount of money. But Bob Lazar was hired through the same place this guy was hired, the same place. confirming that Bob might have actually stepped foot in Area 51. But it doesn't mean that there's a secret UFO hangar 15 miles south.
Right.
The company is called EG&G. So Bob Lazar claims he was interviewed at EG&G twice, or maybe 3 times, and that eventually they gave him the job. They're the actually Bob said that at EG&G they said, we're not associated with this base. We're just interviewing here randomly. But maybe they have to say that because it's so secret. But this guy who had the stealth paint fly in his, or just the fumes, he said he was hired through EG&G and that he technically had to sue them and not Area 51 or something weird like that. Something weird like that. But that is interesting. That's confirmation Bob might have worked there. Now I have a second confirmation Bob might have worked at Area 51. So I'm not all anti-Bob. If I see evidence, I have an open mind, and I will look at it and I'll talk about it. The second piece of evidence, there's a doctor, and I don't know his name because I just learned this information, but there's a doctor who was posting on Facebook, and he was ripping Bob. He's like, Bob's fake. Bob did work at Area 51, but he didn't work on flying saucers. And people are like, what? Bob worked at Area 51? What's the evidence? And this is kind of a thinly, it's not much evidence, but it's a Bob skeptic admitting he worked there, which is pretty rare. So people paid attention. He said he knows Bob's supervisor from Area 51, and she's a woman. She's a woman. And this is interesting. He said that she said Bob worked outside of Area 51 at a radiation screening center where he would screen the employees for radiation. And that's it.
Whoa.
And if that's true, it lines up to an extreme degree because Bob worked at Los Alamos Labs National Laboratory in New Mexico. And one of his confirmed jobs there, he says he was a physicist there. But one piece of information we know from John Lear, one of Bob Lazar's best friends, who used to drop him off places, used to drive him places, really good friends. He said Bob got a contract with Los Alamos National Labs to sell radiation screening equipment.
Oh, wow.
So that is exactly why Area 51 would have given him a radiation screening job, because he already had radiation screening equipment contract with Los Alamos, which did have a security clearance for him to even walk in the building, and he would sell them. And all we know is Bob made like $900 on his W-2, $900 to work at Area 51.
It's not a lot, though, considering what he was doing, like...
Maybe he worked as the radiation screening guy for 1 week and was fired. that would explain $900. But any longer than 1 week, that paycheck is way too low, I heard someone say if he worked on flying saucers, he would make $1 million a year. He wouldn't make $900 on his W.
Right?
And the W-2 is for the entire year. He claims he worked there. He claims he worked there 4 to 6 months, but you don't make $900 in 4 to 6
months. Yeah, you can't even live on that.
Yeah, so we don't know if this doctor is telling the truth, but someone pointed out that the doctor didn't know that he was posting comments on a Facebook page that he didn't know was open to the public. He thought it was a private conversation. So he said he knows the supervisor. She said he worked off-site, but he admitted she was an Area 51 supervisor. So that doesn't make much sense. He probably did work at Area 51 if that story is true. But Bob does say he did work off-site. He said he didn't work at Area 51. He said he flew in there, but they immediately drove him to the flying saucer hangar at S4, which, after looking at satellite imagery nonstop for the past many years, I've found zero evidence it exists. But supposedly it's like a Men in Black situation where you can't see it until you press a secret button and a secret. I mean, it's a pretty convoluted story because
It's like the Bat Cave built into the side of a canyon or something.
yeah. But what I was thinking is Bob Lazar's, what his first interview, he had a face that was all shadowy, and he said his name was Dennis. He said that was an inside joke because he said his supervisor's name was Dennis. But what if his supervisor's name was Denise and was a woman?
Hey, actually, that would make a lot of sense.
Yeah,
because it would be a good cover. I mean, that definitely, what you just explained, actually does speak to his credibility. I'll give him that. Yeah, I can't knock him for that. I mean, it is a realistic possibility. Maybe he did work at Area 51, and post losing that job, he got a little imaginative with it and realized, hey, I had the opportunity to do something not a lot of people get to do. Maybe I should, cash in on this. Or you never know.
It would explain why the government can't say he didn't work there, because if he did work there for 1 week, it's still classified information. They can't reveal it.
He still worked there.
They're tied to their own rules of non-disclosure.
Yeah.
But maybe he got fired, and maybe he was so begrudging against the people that fired him that maybe he created the UFO story as revenge for being fired from Area 51. That's one theory I came up with. I didn't add it to the video because we can't prove it. It's just speculation. But
I hope he made certainly more than $900 on all these books and interviews he's been doing since he left Area 51.
Yeah. Oh, $900. He sold probably 100 VHS tapes in the late 80s, early 90s, and then he gave it up, and then he let other people cash in on it. Does he have some contract with those people? Who knows? Maybe not. There's a guy named Carl Allen who invented the Philadelphia experiment, and people that don't know that didn't research Carl Allen's life. He changed his name to Carlos Allende. I personally think he had a little bit of an issue with multiple personalities. And I don't knock him for that, but this is how he invented the Philadelphia experiment. He got a copy of a book called The Casebook for UFOs. Unlike a regular person who just reads a book and then they're done and they put it on the bookshelf, Carl Allen, as he's reading, he writes in the margins of the book with 3 different color ink from the perspective of 3 different people. And the 3 different people happen to be 3 different aliens. But he admits they came from his mind and he just made it up. So he's writing basically commentary from aliens reading the book when it was just him reading the book.
That's kind of cool, though.
In the commentary, one of the stories he invents on the spot via an alien writing is the Philadelphia experiment, that he once saw a ship in the harbor named the USS Eldridge, and he saw a secret experiment where it was made invisible, 100% optically invisible in it, either teleported or traveled through time. No one knows, but it disappeared, and amazing technology. And Bob Lazar, supposedly, according to his dad, he might have seen the USS Eldridge, and he was in the military, I believe the Navy. So he did have an opportunity to see it, but he never served on it. But my theory, going back to 2012, is that he saw the USS Eldridge, and it was being degaussed with degaussing equipment. And degaussing equipment makes the ship demagnetized. So when they sail it out for World War II, there aren't water mines attracted to it. That's how water mines up those ships. They're magnetic. They are attracted to the ship's magnetic field. these huge degaussing things are like alien equipment. He didn't know what it was. And he asked the fellow sailors, like, what are they doing? And he said, they're making the ship invisible magnetically to the water mines, not optically invisible. I think that's how he got the idea. In letters to his parents, Carl Allen in the 50s, possibly even the 40s, but we know in the 50s, 1952, 1953, he told his dad that it's fantastically silly, like he uses the word kind of fake, something to that effect, story is necessary to promote the science of Albert Einstein and the unified theory of relativity. Because maybe with Einstein's theory equals MC squared, we can create this amazing technology. So that was Carl Allen's motivation for making up the Philadelphia experiment. He wanted scientists to create teleportation, time travel, invisibility, optical invisibility, using science. And that was his motivation. It wasn't an evil motivation. And like Bob Lazar, or even more so, Carl Allen admits he made a couple $100 from his story. And when he saw in the 70s people making movies and books on the Philadelphia experiment, and they made thousands of dollars, Carl Allen's like, hey, that's my story. I made it up. And he admitted in the 70s that he faked the story with positive intentions. And later in his life, Carl Allen, I think about 5 or maybe 10 years before he died, he said, it's real, because he was basically in poverty. He was a very poor guy. He had the motivation to want to get a book deal or something, and it didn't work. It didn't work, and he died in poverty. Very sad story. But Carl Allen, also known as Carlos Allende, he didn't make anything from his story except for he admitted he made like $400 for an event one time, something like that. It's pretty sad. It makes me feel bad for him.
Yeah, he's an interesting guy from the story. It's it's about like Bob Lazar's paycheck at Area 51, though.
Mm-hmm. I mean, if Bob Lazar isn't making any money off his story, he's in a similar boat. People can say he's crazy, but it's I'm not a doctor, so I can't confirm that. But even if I was a doctor, it's against the rules to diagnose people from a distance. So there's no way to know for sure, So my video finished at compiling, and now I need to upload it to YouTube. Just gotta find it.
Awesome. Hey, John, where should I go? I'm in Santa Barbara. Should I do an on-the-spot investigation of the Mission Santa Barbara right now? I could go. I'm right on State Street, 3 miles away.
Do you have a night vision camera?
No.
Do you have a spirit box?
No.
I
have a car.
I can't upload my video because it'll destroy the Wi-Fi and it'll mess up the live stream.
Yeah, you can't do it right now.
But right after the live stream, I'll upload the video. I can't guarantee that they're gonna say okay though and approve it because man.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
I've cut out everything I could think of. I cut out saying he's crazy. I just cut it out. I cut out saying maybe he's a pathological liar. I cut that out. I cut it out, and I made it as nice and positive as I could with still talking about stuff like element 115. See, element 115, Bob can't claim it's the same as the element 115 on the periodic table without the properties being exactly the same. And if he can't prove that, they're two different things. What I don't understand.
Element 116. No, I'm serious. I'm kidding.
Well, he said it was a metal, but a metal could have been element 110 or element 113. See, back in 1989, they didn't discover element 110 yet. or element 113 yet. So why didn't he call it element 113? Why? Because I think he knew they would discover it in the future, and he would say, hey, yeah, that's the same stuff. And
That's pretty easy. Yeah.
I think he didn't know he would be discovered this fast. I think it was discovered sooner than he was hoping. I don't know. But George Knapp said they buried the 115. They buried it somewhere, and he says he knows where it is. And
What?
George Knapp said one day he's going to dig it up. First of all,
Yeah, right.
I would believe the story. I would believe the entire story, A to Z. The anti-gravity drive, the flying saucers, the extraterrestrials. I would believe the whole story, the secret hangars in the side of the mountain. If they got the 115 and mailed it to a laboratory and they did a spectrum analysis on it and they said, hey, this is stable 115, I would believe it. But they can't dig it up, break off a piece, mail it to a legitimate laboratory, and have a spectrum analysis done on it. They can't do that because, whoops, it disappeared. It's gone. The one thing that they can use to prove the story is true, they buried it. That doesn't make any sense other than they think it's dangerous. I understand every time Bob mentions 115, he's like, oh, I can't talk about having taken some of it. That is hard to decipher because he can't be telling the truth if he didn't break off a piece and okay, let's say he doesn't trust the labs. How come he didn't do a spectrum analysis himself on it?
That's true because of where he worked. You think he would have been able to actually do that?
Yeah, spectrum analysis when they bombard it with this and that, and it comes out with the charts showing what it is. And he did a cloud chamber experiment. He put it in a cloud chamber. It looks to me with two other objects. And why the two other objects? I don't know. Other than the two other objects might have been an attempt to claim the radiation was from them. But I looked at the cloud chamber experiment. I could see zero radiation. And moscovium, which is the real element 115, is made out of calcium, and it's made out of a super radioactive element called americium. Americium, when you put it in a cloud chamber, it makes ripples in the cloud. That's showing the radiation. You can physically see the radiation reacting to the cloud.
Whoa.
It's
And
incredible.
when Bob Lazar put supposedly the 115 in there, there's no reaction. It's just flat. Nothing. It's flat and nothing because it's probably a piece of copper. Just like it's probably a piece of copper. I think he has a prop that he machined at Los Alamos Labs himself. I think he machined it and used it as a prop. See, I got it. Here it is. I don't
Right.
know.
Yeah, could very well be.
But flying saucers, the spiritual nature of them. I think the Battle of Los Angeles, you've heard of that, right? You've heard of the Battle of
Oh,
Los Angeles,
yes.
Yes.
where they shot huge shells, giant, like the biggest shells, the highest caliber. Even some of
Yep.
those shells supposedly killed people. I think a couple
good.
people died.
A dog. Yeah.
And
Guy and his
they
dog
shot
died, yeah.
they shot at something the size of a blimp for like 2 hours straight,
Dirigible.
something like that, and they couldn't shoot it. The bullets just went right through it. So
Right.
it wasn't a physical object, yet it glowed bright, and they took a picture of it. It was on the front page of Los Angeles Times. And I think that could have been a spirit
Interesting.
or multiple spirits doing some type of prototype test of we can pretend we're something like a solid object in the sky. We can emit light. Let's see what these humans do with that. And they can't die. They can't get hurt. The bullets go straight through them.
Right.
Even though it's a very bizarre theory, I think it's more realistic than ET hovering over Los Angeles and showing off their phasing to another dimension technology.
Yeah.
We can't hear you, Brandon.
That the jet.
He broke up just a little bit.
Bad connection. We can't hear you.
Let's see. Hopefully it'll get
Another theory though, and that is how about now?
okay. You're sounding better.
Am I set? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, just like
All
the
right.
old commercial.
I'm at the Daily Grind, which is like a little coffee place in Santa Barbara. I'm on De La Vina Street. I don't. Anyway,
Don't lie. The Daily Grind is a strip club.
it is a strip club. So no, I was going to say there's a third option with the Battle of Los Angeles.
Okay.
All right, and it is that the Japanese were designing at that time dirigibles that were these incredible steampunk-esque, but without the steam, hot air, I guess, kind of like Zeppelins, that were just like these incredible that you couldn't reach up in the sky because with these artillery weapons, and hence the shells couldn't reach them. And that the Japanese actually had this technology, and it worked to scare. Talk about psychological warfare. It scared the United States into thinking that there was an extraterrestrial threat, or there was this crazy technology, or there was a spirit even. And what happened was they ended up like, I forget what it was. They ended up something with the smallpox vaccine or something. They ended up like, just killing the yellow fever caught. It's a crazy story, but it's an interesting to consider if it's true that the Japanese actually sent, because so from Japan to there's a current that goes from Japan to the United States, and you can fishermen have washed up on San Francisco shores from 2 days in like a aluminum canister or something like that. Like, it's really easy because of the winds, to travel to
Yeah, but they shot
Japan.
bullets.
So what they did was
they shot bullets at it for like 2 hours straight.
Couldn't reach it. It was too because they were going down the coast, and it was way too high up in the air. They couldn't see it. The spotlights couldn't see it. I'm just saying the theory. I'm
But
saying
the
I believe it.
spotlights were pointed directly at it.
I don't know. I don't know if they were.
Yeah, they were. You can see it. There's only one photograph of the UFO, and it was on the front page of the LA Times. That's an actual photograph of the thing. There's like 10 spotlights pointed right at it. There's 10 spotlights pointed at it, and the machine guns bullets, they kind of like bounced off each other. They didn't even touch the thing. They either flew through it or they
couldn't reach it. I think they couldn't reach it.
But they claimed the bullets went straight through it. I mean, that's just what.
Yeah, how they know?
How do they know?
Yeah, I mean
all we have is the report of the people and the report in the newspaper. But it's a peculiar case of a UFO hanging out for 2 hours in the sky.
Right.
Yeah, we haven't really had another news report, like a legit news report that's rivaled that since of a UFO.
So someone thinks Bob Lazar is an intel for the government. They're like intel asset.
Yeah.
And I mean, I do throw that possibility out there that he could be a disinformation agent. And I showed the document from the Alphabet organization, which maybe I shouldn't say the name of, that flying saucers specifically are used for psychological warfare, or at least it was a memo maybe like 40 years ago. If that's a 40-year-old memo, and they notice how popular the subject is, they're still doing it today. They're still doing
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Sam, do you want to talk about? Okay.
What is it?
So people claim Bob Lazar only does a few interviews here and there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Only a few, like barely ever, right? Bob Lazar was on Secure Team 10. You know that YouTube channel, Secure Team 10, that puts out fake UFOs, CGI UFOs 24/7?
I've heard of it. I've never really watched it, but yeah, that rings a bell. I've heard of it before.
He did an interview with Secure Team 10. And notably, it was with Beardman to promote the documentary.
Oh,
but
no.
still, man. And I listened to 1 minute until I had to turn it off. The Secure Team 10 guy, who's 100% anonymous to hide his identity because he cranks out fake UFO footage 24/7. Even the witnesses of the UFOs are actors he pays, or his sister, either his sister or a paid actress or actor. Oh yeah, that UFO is crazy, and it's super fake. The CGI he cranks out, though, he must have a team of UFO CGI, like video game dropouts that they couldn't work in the video game industry, so instead they make fake UFOs for YouTube videos. But it's even higher than 99.9%. Higher than 99.9% of Secure Team 10's UFOs are real. Are fake. I mean, are fake. Are fake. Are real. Are fake. But the fact that Bob Lazar went on Secure Team 10, that's... You don't want to go on a known hoax channel. A known hoax channel. So Beardman clearly said, you know what, they got millions of subscribers. Yeah, millions of subscribers. So all they care about is the millions of subs and not the millions of fake hoax UFO videos?
I know.
Sounds fishy, doesn't it?
Yeah. Like,
Yeah, Ramsey loves that UFO video.
The two biggest UFO hoax channels are Secure Team 10 and Third Phase of Moon. Those are the two fakest of the fake. And there's a guy.
Every single one of them is fake. It's like every single
I know.
one of them.
It's every one of them.
People say
but
it's
they
for
have something new every time. It's just
people say it's for comedy, but people actually believe that stuff, and they buy the t-shirts, and they go to UFO conventions. I saw footage of UFO fans at a UFO convention wearing a Secure Team 10 t-shirt, and they're talking about how they saw something in the sky. But you're wearing a hoax t-shirt while you're talking about your story. So I don't know. Just makes me feel bad for people. But okay.
When I wore my UFO t-shirt, I was just like, I just want to see Ravi Shankar in concert. Come on. No, I'm kidding. That was a band. There was a band called UFO before. I think it was the Scorpions that came along. I think it's like the same guys for the most part.
Oh, right.
What's that, Brandon?
So Bob Lazar, I mean, someone was saying I believe him. I believe he might have stepped foot inside Area 51 based on two pieces of information. Someone who really worked there was hired through EG&G, the same place he was hired through. And that doctor that said he knows his former supervisor. And man, I wish we could get that guy to spill the beans.
I feel like, you know what, even though my opinion doesn't really, count here because I'm probably the least educated on Bob Lazar here out of the three of us, but based on what you told me passed on by that doctor, I actually do believe that he was at Area 51. I don't believe what he's saying or what he's proposing is true, but I do believe that he actually used to work there at one point in his life.
Okay. I can talk about a contradictory statement, like an inconsistency. In one interview, Bob Lazar said that the yellow-colored pine-smelling drug that they made him drink, the liquid, he said it was a drug in one either UFO convention or speech or interview. He said he drank it, and he said it might have been to build his immunity and help his body because maybe the foreign climate, maybe they specifically designed some mix of vitamins and minerals for Area 51 employees to keep them safe, which is theoretically possible if you know there are radiation and chemicals being dealt with there that are classified. So he said, oh, it's probably just a harmless energy drink of a concoction designed by them to build up my immunity. Okay, that's one telling of the yellow liquid that smelled like pine. And then when he told John Lear, like we're talking the next day or maybe coming straight from the base, he flew in, maybe he gets a car to his house, whatever the case. He goes straight to John Lear's house and he said, they drugged me. And John Lear told him to switch his thing. And I'm not going to talk about the whole story. I'm just going to talk about the difference between the pine smelling, tasting fluid contradiction. At first, he said, it's probably just a harmless to build my immunity. And talking to John Lear, he said, immediately after taking this fluid, he felt so dazed and confused that he felt like he was in a well at the bottom of 100-foot well, and that his hands were reaching to the well, and that his hands and his arms were 100 feet tall. That sounds like a drug trip to an extreme degree, does it not?
It does sound like they either dosed him with acid or something like that. I'm just joking when I say this, of course, but I have a funny theory now. I think now my personal theory is the U.S. government thought it would be hilarious to see if they could get Bob Lazar to drink a glass of Pine Sol because it's yellow and smells like pine.
I know.
They're like, we'll take a quick survey on this medical effects of Pine Sol on a human being.
Oh my gosh!
Oh my God!
That would be illegal anywhere except for Area 51. They can do whatever they want. You know what I mean?
Right.
Wow. I mean, people have, most definitely. That's an interesting theory. I mean, first of all, let's say they don't like the guy and they do want to goof on him. Man, that could kill you taking some mindset. But like you said, LSD, it sounds closer to a trippy drug like LSD. And for those who don't know, MK Ultra, probably something you can't mention too much, but it's a real program that actually happened where they had military it was sort of voluntary, but it was still illegal. You know, they signed up for something, they didn't know what it was. The government fed these soldiers LSD and tried to brainwash them to become super soldiers or whatever the case, something to that effect. It's very famous. You've heard of MK Ultra brainwashing techniques. They actually happened. We have the documents. Freedom of Information Act requests have released them. And even beyond that, they've been released because they're so old. These experiments took place like 40 years ago, whatever the case, but maybe 50 years ago. But LSD was specifically used, or I don't know when LSD was invented. Maybe it was the 60s. You know, I don't know.
It was the 30s. It was invented in the 30s, but it became like a popular recreational drug in like the late 60s, like right in that area.
Like I admit, I haven't researched MK Ultra, but I've heard about it many times. And
it is safe to talk about now because it's one of those things that since it's been discontinued and it was like 50 years ago, you know, the documents are open for the public to see now, like you said, and I think the government just kind of blows off like, oh, ha, ha, ha. You know, it's kind of funny. We think of things like men who stare at goats and stuff like that, but I think you know, it's a little bit messed up because imagine being one of those poor guys, like just going about your own business, and then somebody doses you with this crazy drug. You don't know what it is. You don't know what it's doing to your body or your mind. And
I mean, the context of Bob Lazar, he said he took the fluid and then they handed him briefs with alien pictures inside. And he's reading this alien stuff, and there's a guard with an M16 who shoves it in his stomach every time he's finished reading it, or some, but like it's part of the brainwashing, shoving it in his stomach to really, first of all, if you read some alien dossier or alien memo or alien brief and you look at some hilarious alien pictures, you're like, this is a joke. Right. If there's a guy with an M16 shoving a gun in your stomach while you're reading it, while you're on drugs, you're going to take it dead seriously. You know what I mean? So I don't know. It sounds like some type of brainwashing might have taken place. In some interviews, Bob Lazar says, no, he wasn't brainwashed at all. In some interviews, Bob says he didn't see any aliens. And then in other cases, he said he saw aliens, but maybe it was a doll. And in other cases, he said he saw aliens. And I talk about that in the video. I don't want to give it away. But in other cases, he says he was drugged to an extreme degree. And then he ignores that drugging in other retellings of the story, like it never happened. So he's hiding something or changing the story, or something is taking place. You know, it's hard to follow. It's hard to say he's a liar or that he has a bad memory. If he was drugged, he is going to have a bad memory. He was hypnotized and went through hypnotic regression to try to remember what happened to him during such traumatic events as the drugging and the reading the documents. And the weirdest information came out, really weird information, to the point where it seems like the hypnotherapist and that his friend were feeding Bob information to the point where they're asking him questions about spirituality instead of about Area 51. I don't think spirituality is going to be our topic of what we want to know about Area 51. What's in the documents? Spirituality. So it's hard to say whether he actually was reading spiritual or religious related documents, or if somehow it went that direction during the hypnotherapy. It's hard to say. But I think the first session of hypnotherapy was recorded, but the recorder broke, so we don't have it. We don't have that. The second regression was transcribed by John Lear, a guy who's an extreme conspiracy theorist. But, I mean, he does verbatim have the ability to write and repeat what Bob Lazar told him. John Lear, look him up. He thinks the moon is hollow and is a spaceship. And maybe the moon is a hollow spaceship, but you know, I think one of the astronauts did say the moon rang like a bell. So that's probably where he got that. Supposedly one of the astronauts said that after they landed, they could hear like a ringing, but maybe that was in their headset. I don't know, you know. But John Lear recounts some really phenomenal things that Bob told him. And then he told him these things in confidence. And then out in the public, Bob says something else. So I don't know if Bob Lazar is just really open and is telling him a secret story that he doesn't want to reveal. But John Lear reveals everything. So, or maybe he's hyping up a story knowing John Lear is going to take it and spread it. I don't know. I have no idea what the dynamic is, but John Lear believes in Billy Meyer, and Bob Lazar said he's skeptical of Billy Meyer, even though two of the flying saucers Bob Lazar describes look exactly like a Billy Meyer flying saucer, which is unusual. Why would he be so skeptical if he saw it with his own eyes? Bob Lazar said one of the flying saucers, when the hangars were all open, he could see the 10 hangars open. And in the 10 hangars, I think he said he saw 9 different flying saucers. I guess one of the hangars was empty. So there's 10 hangars, 9 flying saucers. He said he worked on the sport model, and he doesn't admit this, but the sport model looks exactly like one of the Billy Meyer flying saucers. He says one of the additional other flying saucers he saw looked exactly like a Billy Meyer flying saucer. So that's unusual that he doesn't notice that the sport model looks like a Billy Meyer as well. And I don't know which one. He never described, because Billy Meyer has like 10 different models that he used when he hung it from string and took photos. It's clearly fake. People say to me constantly, how can an old man with one arm create a flying saucer model and hang it with one hand and take it? Understandably, he has to prop it up with something and then with his one hand take it. And he wasn't an old guy at the time. He was young enough to have an inventive mind to do such things. But understandably, the thing going in circles, I guess maybe he had it on a piece of wood, and maybe he had to spin it and then film it. We don't know if he had a partner. But Bob Lazar's ex-wife said the whole thing's fake. That's the first time I ever heard anything about Bob Lazar not being 100% legit. His ex-wife said it's not real, that he makes models. And she's speaking in Swiss, and they have to translate it to English. And I think she has a valid point. But I'm also going to talk about the 9 saucers. So we don't know what order, and he's never mentioned all 9, as far as I know. If anyone can get the entire description of every 9 saucer, please help me find that, because I have a theory concerning the 9 saucers. I'm not going to present it because I don't have the evidence yet, but one of the flying saucers he calls Jello mold, because he said it looks like a Jello mold. So we have the sport model, we have the Jello mold, and then we have the one he calls the top hat. So one looks like a top hat, but when he describes it over and over, he sometimes calls it a straw hat. So when I hear top hat, straw hat, and the way he describes it, it's really short. It's almost like one of those political straw hats that people wear.
Oh, yeah.
So one of them, he said, looked like that. He said he was up on its side, and he said the rim was very thin. He said it was the thinnest saucer rim, to the point where he saw a hole in it. He said the hole was about this big, a very high caliber, that it looks like they tested the material to see if they could shoot through it. So they literally, if the government has this,
right,
the government propped up a priceless extraterrestrial saucer and shot a freaking bullet through it.
Just to see if they could do it.
It's kind of wasteful,
Right.
But can't exactly fix it, if it's some super secret alien metal. Bob said he didn't know if it was ceramic or if it was metal, but he said it felt like unfinished aluminum.
Weird.
He said it probably wasn't aluminum because he got inside of it and it didn't. Some people say it's really light. And what's unusual to me is Bob always has an answer. Well, that's not true. Sometimes he says, I don't know. Occasionally he says, I don't remember. I don't know. But when he has an answer, it's almost too specific. Like Art Bell said, how heavy do you think the craft was? Did they ever lift it? And he doesn't talk about the time they tested it and they flew it and it went back and then it went down. He didn't mention that story, which I thought was interesting, because that's when they did lift it using the anti-gravity technology. But he told Art Bell that he saw a crane above the flying saucer in the hangar. And he says it said 10 tons on it. And that's a little bit too specific. He told Art it's probably less than 10 tons because I saw a crane that said 10 tons on it. And I was like, what? It sounds like he made that detail up on the spot. That's what it sounded like in the 2002 interview with Art Bell. Either he made it up on the spot or he just remembered it. I don't know. It came out very weird. Like it was what Art wanted to hear, so he gave it to him. I don't know. I've never heard him say the 10-ton crane ever until that interview. But 9 saucers. We have the sport model, the Jello mold, the top hat, and then we have the one that looks exactly like a Billy Meyer saucer. And that's just 4. We have 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. He's never described. He's never described these other ones.
Do you think maybe the reason he has something against Billy Meyer is there might be a little bit of a competition or even plagiarism at hand?
Well, most definitely competition. And I have read many times that people say he took Billy Meyer's design and weaved it into his story. I have a couple theories, though. That he either took it from Billy Meyer or that while he's reading these briefs, the U.S. government has photos. And where are they going to get flying saucer photos? They're just going to put some Billy Meyer photos in there, right? If it's fake. If the briefs that he read were fake, the U.S. government's just going to put some fake saucers in there, pump him full of drugs, make him think that he's looking at real saucers while he's on LSD. And maybe that's why they looked exactly like Billy Meyer saucers. Maybe because they were, and maybe he never saw physical saucers. Maybe he was so messed up on drugs because they pump him with drugs every time he goes to the base. Maybe it was some type of weird experiment where they wanted to see if someone could be a disinformation agent against their will. That's one theory.
I mean, you shove a gun in somebody's stomach enough times, they're going to take you seriously. I mean, they're not playing around.
Yeah, that's definitely an intimidation tactic. And if you're on LSD, who knows what you're going to think when in that scenario.
That would scare the shit out of me. I'm sorry. I'm trying not to swear. I think I've sweared like 3 times since I've been on here.
That's no big deal. So does anyone have any questions from the chat? Let's see what we got. He claimed he had a migraine. He had trouble with his story, but it felt forced. I mean, I have to admit, he forgot his own story. It's kind of weird, you know. But the migraine, you know, you can think about the migraine different ways. And I've heard UFO community members say that the migraine is a result of the programming, that they programmed him to not talk about it. And every time he talks about it, he has a physical reaction of pain, kind of like the movie Clockwork Orange.
That's what I was going to bring up too, like what happened to Alex.
Clockwork Orange, they showed him movies of violence so he wouldn't want to do violence anymore, but they played Beethoven's Ninth in the background, his favorite song of all things, and every time he heard Beethoven's Ninth, he wanted to jump out a window just to stop the pain because it hurt so much. And perhaps Bob Lazar was Clockwork Oranged. I mean, we don't know. We don't know what happens at Area 51, but I could tell you this. There's a newspaper article from 1980 on Area 51 saying it's a secret base. So anyone claiming, oh, Bob Lazar is the first one to ever say that. There's an article dated 1980, 9 years before Bob came forward, saying it's a super secret base and it has a nickname called the Funny Farm. So in 1980, they called Area 51 the Funny Farm. Maybe they've been doing psychological and drug and brainwashing things since the 80s. It's hard to say, but that's a weird nickname. But everyone who leaves perhaps goes crazy. I don't know. Or I mean, maybe it has to do with the different clearance, and they program anyone or they brainwash and drug anyone with a certain high enough clearance so they can't talk because they can't remember or they feel pain when they try to talk. But, you know, it's a pretty good possibility.
Yeah, that is, wow. I love the analogy, though, of Clockwork Orange. Like, I think that's very spot on.
So David Blaine says Bob Lazar was probably drugged to meet the aliens. Alex Jones said that the elite take drugs like DMT to talk to aliens. Well, I mean, I'm not going to talk about AJ too much. Don't say his name. I shouldn't have said it. But they don't. What he was talking about specifically was taking DMT and taking drugs to leave your body and talk to spirits on a spirit plane, on a spirit level. And sure, you can talk to aliens outside your body, but I seriously doubt that's to talk to physical aliens out of base.
Right.
You know? Yeah, but that is an interesting angle. You know, Bob Lazar said he was drugged, and you have to watch my video, which I will upload after this live stream. And it does talk about Bob Lazar supposedly meeting extraterrestrials face to face. And he can't talk about it. Maybe he can't talk about it because he was programmed to not talk about it. That's a possibility. I mean, it's a more convoluted possibility than he just made it up. But I think it is interesting that we do have two pieces of evidence that he did work at Area 51. I think the entire story, Bob's entire story, started with him meeting the father of the hydrogen bomb, Dr. Edward Teller. That was a huge meeting. Without that meeting taking place, Bob would have never worked for Area 51, according to Bob. And if that meeting took place, it could explain why he was able to jump through the hoops and get to a super secret project with or without degrees from MIT and Caltech.
I mean, it's rare. It's very rare. Like, for example, Richard Feynman worked on the Manhattan Project. I'm a big fan of nerdy scientific history in the Manhattan Project. Richard Feynman was, I don't know if you guys know who he is, famous scientist. Taught at Caltech. When the Challenger exploded, he's the one that kind of found the O-rings or whatever. Anyway, he passed away. Brilliant scientist. Worked on the Manhattan Project, and it was so interesting, the different things that came from the Manhattan Project. So, you know, is it possible that people were inspired from it? Sure, I guess, you know, but I don't believe Bob Lazar for 1 minute. I do not believe him. And is it possible for people to have bachelor's degrees or not even bachelor's degrees? Yes. To work for the government? Yes. Like super hackers, you know, kids. And that's for sure. That can happen, but it's super rare, man. And they don't go on the UFO circuit. If what Bob Lazar was saying was so important, the U.S. government would stop him. You know what I mean? Or somebody would stop him. It just doesn't make sense. He would be persecuted. He'd be Julian Assange. He'd be Edward Snowden. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they definitely don't mind his existence. Let me give you an example. You type in Bob Lazar in any search engine, you're going to get positive results of him being a truth teller. Except for, yes, it will say he's a conspiracy theorist. But I tried to type in Bob Lazar hoax. I found 0 Bob Lazar hoax theories.
Wow.
0. You have to dig deep to find anything saying Bob Lazar isn't 100% accurate. It's that when the machine is in his favor, there's something going on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Something going on.
Cyberdyne Systems. I think he's hooked up into Cyberdyne Systems and Terminator 2. It's Judgment Day. Let's just put it that way. No, I'm just kidding. But seriously, like Bob Lazar, I never really looked at it until this video of yours, John, this research into it, because I really just regarded it as silly, but you've taken it to a level where it's like, wow, I never considered that aspect of it. You know what I mean? I really wish I could talk about it, but I can't until people actually see it. You know what I mean? So it's really good, everybody.
Oh, thanks. I will upload it, and I can only make it public when it turns green, because what happens is all my views are in 2 weeks, and then I get no more views. And if it takes 2 weeks to turn green all the views are null and void. I don't know. It has nothing to do with money. People are like, oh, you just care about the money. First of all, I'll probably get 50 cents off those views. I don't care about 50 cents. I care about the respect of YouTube saying, oh, you're a legitimate YouTuber. Okay, there's a legitimate video. When they say you're not a legitimate YouTuber, that's not a legitimate video, I'm not going to make it public. It's like giving YouTube free content and letting them kick me in the face. It's just not, it's not fair. You know what I mean? So the video has to be green. Green meaning monetized status. I've spent many weeks working and investigating this. Okay, so Bob Lazar met Dr. Teller, according to him. And this is how the story goes. Bob Lazar had access to Los Alamos Labs, whether he was a contractor or he worked there. It doesn't matter. He had access. He was in the phone book because he did have access. And he heard about Dr. Teller giving a speech. And he's like, whoa, that's my hero. And I never heard of him, you know. But he loved Dr. Teller. And he's like, there's probably going to be 100 people waiting for him. So he gets there super early to beat the crowds, right? There's 0 people waiting for Dr. Teller. This is way beyond his heyday. He's just an old scientist at this point. He's an old theoretical physicist. And there's 0 people waiting for his speech. And he got there early, though. He was just trying to beat the crowds. He wanted to get a good seat. And so he's looking, Bob Lazar is looking around. He's like, what? There's nobody here. And he sees one person. And that one person is Dr. Teller reading the newspaper. And Bob Lazar walks up to him. He sees that he's reading the Los Alamos newspaper. And Bob Lazar is on the front cover because he put a jet engine in his car. And he uses that as a segue. Hey, that's me. That's my jet engine car. And Edward Teller, you know, says, oh, that's cool. You know, they talk. And this is the interesting point. But there is different varying versions of this meeting. In one Art Bell interview, Bob Lazar said, you know, I met Dr. Teller. Art Bell says, oh, what was he like? And in one interview, Bob Lazar says, oh, you know, his interviews you probably seen and watched and heard and read. He's kind of a jerk. But in person, he was really warm and personable and really nice and down to earth. And so he says, you know, Edward Teller was really nice. And then in a different Art Bell interviews, Art Bell asks the same question. Oh, what was he like? Because these interviews are like 5 years apart or something. And Art Bell probably forgot asking the question. So Art Bell asked him the same question. And Bob Lazar says, remember, the first time he said he was really nice, right? Mm-hmm. The second time Bob Lazar says he was really stubborn. And you know those scientists that know it all and they're stuck in their ways? He was like that. He was a jerk. So either he was nice or he was a jerk. But that tells me that Bob Lazar did meet Dr. Teller, because I've met some superstars in my time. And if they treat you like dirt, which superstars do, you know, if you meet your hero and they're rude to you, you're like, oh, man, that sucks. That sucks that my hero is a jerk. You know what I mean? Yeah. So Bob Lazar found out that his hero was a jerk. He has positive memories about meeting him. But then he remembers the time he was a jerk to him. He's like, I can't hate the time I met him because he was cool to meet him. But he's conflicted. He's like, he was nice, but he was a jerk. That's how I've described meeting a couple celebrities. I'm not going to say their names, but occasionally you would meet a celebrity who's a jerk, but you like them so much in their movies or TV shows or whatever that you like you forget them being rude and you just have a memory of them being nice when they weren't, you know. But I think he did. I think he did meet Dr. Teller based on his conflicting.
But most people would see that and say inconsistency, liar. You know what I mean?
Yeah. but I don't see that because he described him like meeting one of his heroes.
Right.
And he was just kind of disappointed in meeting that's very, very common. You know, they say never meet your heroes. You know, it's very common response.
Oh, I have, and yeah, that's true. That's absolutely true because they'll let you down. Don't have a hero, you know.
You know, they're human beings. They have good days
Exactly.
and bad days. So that's why I will say, maybe they were having a bad day. And then some days I'll say they were a jerk. You know, that's just a description of seemingly like he actually met him. So let's say he met him. Not a big deal, right? He met Dr. Teller. He sat front row. He loved it. And then about 6 years later, Bob Lazar moves back to Las Vegas. He mails out a bunch of resumes. He's trying to get back into the scientific community, in his own words. And he said he mailed resumes to many different people, including Dr. Teller. And he said the only response he got back was from Dr. Teller. He said Dr. Teller called him up. So maybe that's the response he got. He got a phone call from Dr. Teller. And during the phone call, Dr. Teller says he's not working anymore except for as a consultant, but he knows some people and he can help him out with a job, or at least help him out with someone who can probably get him a job. And there's also conflicting versions of this phone call. In one version, Bob Lazar says that he doesn't know if Dr. Teller remembers his meeting at Los Alamos. He doesn't know if he remembers. In another telling, Bob Lazar said, oh, he mentioned how he remembered me from our meeting, and that's how I got the job. So that's kind of conflicting, but maybe Dr. Teller never mentioned him remembering him. And maybe just in Bob's head, he thought that's how he got the contact. That's why he called him up, because he remembered him. So maybe that's just him reaching. But I think he did remember him. I think Dr. Teller probably would have remembered some kid being the only person to show up, early. And the only person to show up early for my event of speaking, you know, like back in the day, he probably would have had a bunch of people show up. He remembered this one kid that showed up, really happy to see him. And that might have left an impression on him strong enough where he would help him get a job.
Interesting.
So
yeah, I mean, I've done that.
Teller contacts someone who has a connection with EG&G, which is Area 51 uses EG&G. We know this because there's an actual guy that tried to sue Area 51. And
really?
He had to sue EG&G, his contractor who got him the Area 51 job. You missed this story, but there's a guy who worked at Area 51. He had to stand over a pit while they're burning stealth paint that goes on the stealth bombers. And while they're burning the stealth paint, these chemicals are blowing in his face, and he believes he got some horrible whatever condition because of it. Perhaps he got laryngitis or some lung, permanently lung damage, whatever that he claims. He tried to sue Area 51 because there was so much red tape. He had to sue EG&G, the people who he contracted
the
through.
Corporation. Yeah.
So EG&G is how Bob Lazar claimed he worked there. EG&G. So that is a confirmation he might have actually worked there.
Yeah.
But so Dr. Teller gives Bob Lazar the job, right? Through someone else. The someone else says, come to EG&G. They interview. Bob Lazar claims he's overqualified for the job. And he says a little while later, they call him for a different job. And that
because
is...
he met... I don't get it. Well, how's he overqualified?
This overqualified doesn't make sense. It could be some ego thing that Bob made up in his head. It's hard to say, but maybe it was something lower.
Because if he never went to MIT, like he's admitted, and I know that part, like he's even admitted to Linda Moulton Howe that
It was about like, oh no, I just meant I was going visiting some friends there, then I liked it. And I sat in on a lecture. It's like that's not that doesn't mean you went to MIT. Like by that measure, I've been to every university in Boston. You know what I mean?
Well,
like,
yeah, I thought that was weird how he told Linda Moulton Howe that, oh, I never said I went there. You've told millions of people you have a master's degree there specifically.
That's just a sneaky lawyer trick.
When they ask you what year was it, he says, oh, I'm not sure. And that was Stanton Friedman's like nail in the coffin. Stanton was like, no one forgets the year they graduated from MIT. No one.
Absolutely not. Yeah, especially with a master's degree. Yeah.
So, Stanton really focused on the school history, the schooling, to the point where Stanton is the one who called up his high school to find out that he was in the bottom third who graduated. And he said MIT would never take someone from bottom third. And
no, very rarely, especially with those test scores. Yeah,
that's Stanton. But according to Bob Lazar, Dr. Edward Teller juiced him in. Now, if that juiced him in story is true, it would only be because he was the only kid that showed up to some nerdy event, and it's theoretically possible. All right, let's just give him that. Theoretically possible. But the problem is there are varying stories of the meeting with Dr. Teller. There's variations. So I already told you how one he said maybe he's a jerk, one he said he's nice, right? But there's variations that go beyond that. You said Linda Moulton Howe. So this is what Bob Lazar told Linda Moulton Howe. He told her that the meeting with Bob Lazar and Dr. Edward Teller, she said that when Bob met him, he straight up said, hey, can I get a job at Area 51?
What? No way.
That is a totally different story than 6 years later sending his resume out. If just the first day he's like, hey, can I get a job?
It's just some David Liebehart exaggeration.
That is like the most David Liebehart exaggeration I've ever heard in my life.
Chalamet.
First of all, moving to a different state and then moving back, sending out your resumes, getting a phone call, him saying, yeah, I remember you, is different than on day one saying, hey, can I get a job at Area 51? It doesn't make sense. So I think either Linda Moulton Howe or maybe a different interview. Not only did he say, can I get a job at Area 51? He said, hey, Dr. Teller, are you researching anti-gravity and flying saucers and UFOs and stuff like that? And that Dr. Teller was like, what are you, an idiot?
Have you looked into this Dr. Teller guy? Like the legitimate scientist? And
you never heard of Dr. Edward Teller, the father of the hydrogen bomb? He's since passed away. He's a real person.
Well, I know, but I know Oppenheimer, and I know. Yeah, I'm sure. I'm just wondering if he ever confirmed meeting Bob Lazar.
Oh, okay. This is how big of a fan Bob Lazar is of Dr. Teller, that he scoured the earth to try to find the video evidence that he remembered him. And Bob was able to find one video of Dr. Teller being asked, do you know who Bob Lazar is? It's because it must have been after Bob Lazar's big thing. So one interviewer asked him, do you know who Bob Lazar is? But the problem is,
it's vague.
He asked him at the wrong point of the interview. This is what happened. The interviewer said something about anti-gravity.
Okay.
And Dr. Teller's like, the interview's over. We're done.
Damn.
And then after Teller was about to leave, the guy says, do you know who Bob Lazar is? And he shakes his head. But you could have said anything at that point. You could have said, would you like a free McMuffin? He still would have said no. So It's not it was the wrong point of the interview. He would have said no to anything
That's
at that.
shady. Yeah.
But
Can I mention the one theory that's really fascinating to me too? The other possibility.
Yeah.
Okay. Is that Bob Lazar is the whole? Now check this out, Sam. If you haven't seen this or heard this, this whole thing is a fantasy by which Bob Lazar cheated on his wife.
Whoa.
And it's like no, I was with the Area 51 guys the whole time.
It kind of makes
crazy?
it a little dark.
Yeah.
I mean,
real.
that would be
Poor Mrs. Lazar.
That would be a good Spike Jonze movie if they had that twist on it. Like the whole movie is him constructing the perfect alibi.
Right.
Got away with it,
But it has to do with aliens, and it's like, and he has to like put on like a white turtleneck and like these like glasses and like get the Stephen King look down and stuff.
Yeah.
No, I mean, but he loves the celebrity of it. When he was on Rogan, I didn't watch it because I don't like it, but I will watch it eventually. But he wore like a Breaking Bad shirt or whatever, and that tells me that he sees himself in the role of a celebrity. You know what I mean?
Well, he was wearing a bromine barium periodic table nerd shirt, but is that associated with Breaking Bad?
Yeah,
I didn't even get the reference.
right. Yeah, it's
Is
the
that
BR.
Oh,
Breaking Bad, because that's yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Well,
Because even the logo, yeah.
Well, Bob sells that T-shirt on his website, unitednuclear.com.
Oh, what the hell?
Yeah.
Shady. Wow. Yeah. Look up Breaking Bad. Look at the. Tell me.
I've never watched Breaking Bad. I'm
Just
one of
don't
the
even watch it. Look at the
human
image.
beings that have never watched it.
Just look at the actual like cover title of it, and it looks like it looks like that exact T-shirt. It looks BR.
When you look at the 1993 Little Alien UFO convention footage, he definitely is gloating in the I'm someone who knows and you don't. I don't know. He definitely had a gloating I love this white turtleneck cult leader attitude going on.
Dude, you should see that white turtleneck is outrageous, and
it's the exact same white turtleneck that the Heaven's Gate guy wore.
Yes,
that's creepy.
And it's around the same time too. Which is interesting.
Oh, we got to look at the time.
They're both in the UFO field.
That would be a good skit. The Heaven's Gate guy and Bob Lazar shopping.
White turtleneck.
All you need to do to come on the Hale-Bopp Comet is just cut off your testicles, buy some Nike tennis shoes, and drink the magic Kool-Aid.
Yeah, right. Well, no, I mean, he has they're shopping, and like he picks up these black Nikes, and he picks up the white turtleneck, and he's like, I don't know, Yeah, that'd be really funny. That'd be a good skit. That'd be really.
I remember when Hale-Bopp was, in the sky, and Art Bell was like, there might be. I've heard some rumors that there's a flying saucer following that. Isn't that funny? Not knowing there's a cult. I was just hearing it for the scientific perspective, not
that
knowing.
Cult is right up the street from where my brother lives in Rancho Santa Fe,
That's
California.
disturbing.
It's a big house. It's like one of the mansions, but like it's a real thing. They all killed themselves.
Sad. Yeah, speaking of going off on tangents, I watched William Shatner's the unexplained. They have to change the spelling because the unexplained is probably something that already exists, so they have to call it the unexplained. And
well, maybe because that's how William Shatner would say it. The unexplained.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I was enjoying the show until I saw George Norrie.
Man.
The show is from the History Channel, and they line up randos, kind of like how VH1 used to do it in Behind the Music or in some, I love the 80s.
The 80s, yeah.
what did you think of Saved by the Bell? Oh, that show was great. You know, the nobodies that they hire to say that.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, it's
George
like a VJ from like 86.
George Norrie is
Yeah.
one of the nobodies they hired. You know, George Norrie has Grammys. He's a millionaire. You wouldn't think he has Grammy. Oh, he has
He has a
Emmys.
Grammy? Okay.
He has Emmys. He's won Emmys for his radio broadcasting excellence.
And
but,
a Tony for his broad production. No, I'm just kidding.
But George Norrie, he's just in the studio. What are they filming? Okay. What are they talking about? Haunted houses? Okay. Some places are scary. Don't go there. His commentary is horrible. And man, I
fascinating.
Just can't stand it. But anyway, there was a haunted house in the shape of a cross, right?
Whoa.
And they said the owner created an upside down cross to summon the devil. But first of all, show me the north, south, east, west. Show a compass while you're showing the drone footage. Because if it's pointed north, then it's a regular cross, not an upside down cross. You have to prove to me that it's upside down. Anyway.
That's hilarious.
I claim
Guys, I was just gonna say I really hate to, but I've got to go because it's like 3:20 in the morning, and I have to wake up somewhat early-ish.
No problem, Sam. Thank you for joining us. I appreciate it.
Thanks,
man.
Thank you for having me here. This was awesome. I always love to come on your show, John. And if it wasn't Monday tomorrow, I probably would stay later. But
okay. Well, thank you.
Hey, thanks, guys.
Sunday, so.
Oh well, duh.
It's okay.
Yeah, that's right.
No big deal. You can go. We're both. Me and Brandon on the West Coast. You're on the East Coast, probably. So don't worry about it.
Still, though, I'm looking forward to the Bob Lazar video because I went to watch it. Actually, was it yesterday or today? See, you messed me up here with this Sunday Monday shit. Anyway, I went to watch that video 10 minutes after it uploaded because I have your notifications clicked on my little bell on YouTube, and I said, "Oh, the Bob Lazar video is here." 10 minutes. 10 minutes. I clicked on it. It was gone. I was so sad. Hey, it's not your fault. It's not your fault that YouTube was being problematic. But hopefully we'll have something good to watch here later tonight. If not, maybe in the morning my time. But thanks, guys. I appreciate you having me on as always.
Good to see you, Sam. Love you, man.
Brandon.
Yeah, take care.
Love you too, brother. Hey, John, I hope to catch you next time, man. Have a great night, okay?
Be seeing you. All right, Sam's gone. John, you're muted. John is muted. His microphone.
Can you hear me?
Oh, there you go. Okay, you're good. You're good now. Yep.
Gosh, my mic cut out randomly. Okay, so I was talking about this upside down haunted house, cross house. Okay.
Yeah.
And the guy, he breaks out. He breaks out one of these, and he breaks out the millimeter. He's like, here we go. Let's turn on the millimeter. And at least he knows what to use. So he breaks out the millimeter, and it's an old millimeter. It's the white one. I prefer the black one. Anyway, he's like, And I'm sure he's a professional, okay? He's probably 1,000,000 times more professional than me based on his History Channel connections. That's what it's all about. If you don't have a TV show connection, you're considered unprofessional. But I personally consider myself pretty good with knowing how this thing works. So he turns it on, and he walks through the house, and the thing is like at 30 milligauss spikes, and the REM pod feature is constantly going off all over the place. The place is like super haunted. But he's like, okay, maybe that's something. I don't know. And then he says, oh, there's definitely multiple spirits here. There's human spirits and maybe some other kind of spirits. And I'm like, no, I don't think so, dude. See, that's where I separate myself from other paranormal investigators, because
Mhm.
I personally believe there's 0 human spirits walking around planet Earth, except for the ones that just died, immediately just died, and they're like,
Right.
I'm dead. What's going on? And then I
Right.
personally think they're slingshotted into a higher dimension, and they can't get down to us. If ghosts are walking around 24/7, human ghosts, they would seek revenge on their enemies. They would help out their relatives.
True.
And necromancy would be pretty commonplace of actually communicating with your dead relatives. Yeah. That's what I personally think.
No, it's true. That's a good point.
But it's not human ghosts walking around, because after using this device for over a year straight, every single spirit that has ever contacted me via this device has definitely been in the realm of deceptive answers. Even though they can only contact me via beep, beep, and numbers, they still, even with that limitation, try to deceive. No joke. I'll say,
I believe it. No. Yeah.
I'll say, hey, are you a male or a female? Beep, beep. I'll say, are you stuck here? Beep. I'll say, I'll really try to delve deep into details. And they beep randomly, not in the realm of electronic interference. They do intelligently respond, but it's never useful information. It's always worthless information. It's always something a demon would freaking do, and not a human spirit. That's kind of my point. I know it's a very unpopular opinion, but
nope, it's not actually. I mean, it is with some people. I mean, but if you look at, like, for example, I just read The Exorcist book, The Exorcist by William Blatty and Peter Blatty or whatever. Very good, and it's based on actual, kind of like Malachi Martin. It's a truth based in a fictional type of world, but it's really good, man. And it turns out that there are a lot of people who believe in negative entities, and not just not in this thing called ghosts. And that when you're actually, for example, using a Ouija board, like I did, like an idiot when I was a kid, you're actually contacting a demon impersonating a relative, not actually the relative itself, And like, how do they know that? How do demons know that knowledge? Well, because demons have been around for forever, and that's the answer. Is they've had lifetimes to study you, and that's what they've done. In fact, I believe, and it's not just in my belief, and I'm not proselytizing any religion here, but the Catholic Church believes that we are signed a demon at birth, but we're also signed an angel, a guardian angel. And
so that's my theory about the demon, but is it specifically in the Catholic doctrine? Because I've never read that anywhere.
What, about the ghosts?
No, about the demon assigned from birth. See, that's something I talk about constantly.
Yeah. No,
I've vaguely heard references to it in a handful of occult books, but I've never heard a text say one demon per human from birth to death.
Yeah.
That's a theory I came up with myself. Is there actual doctrine, scriptural codex that says that?
I mean, it's got to be written down somewhere, but it's definitely in lectures that I've listened to. I mean, I haven't read it in the catechism.
Okay, lectures.
I have to look it up.
I might have heard about it in lectures. That's possible. Yeah,
but by an actual priest who knows his canon law. I wouldn't just base it based on someone that doesn't know what they're talking about. A very traditional conservative exorcist guy. So I don't know. Maybe it's wrong, but I mean, it's the angel thing. It's like you're assigned an angel.
See, the angel is very common. The angel's very common. Everyone's heard the assigned angel. I came up with the assigned demon just to
Well-
balance out. But then again, I guess the number one source is the old angel on the shoulder, demon on the shoulder. That's the best analogy. Everyone's heard that. Okay, so that is doctrine to an extent. Yeah.
To an extent, and even if you look at something like the Screw Tape Letters, which I always constantly reference, is C.S. Lewis book, where a demon is assigned to the patient. They refer to the patient. A senior demon assigns his nephew to Wormwood, is his name, to a soldier during World War II who's becoming a Christian, and he does little things like distract from his Bible studies or whatever, and make him think about this, make him get into an argument with his friend, make him do these tiny things that will lead to temptation and ultimately to not becoming a spiritual warrior. So anyway, but yeah, in there's assigned a demon to you. Like it's pretty much a fact. And if you look, like, a lot of people don't like to admit it because it's an ugly truth, is that demons work for our purification, if you will. Like, they're only there to test our virtue and our vices, in a sense, I think.
I mean, it's pretty obvious that if demons didn't exist, people wouldn't have temptations, and the entire planet would be way different, way different.
Right.
But someone asked a question about Beardman. They said, what's your opinion on Beardman? He was the most distracting part of the podcast. And then they used the poo emoji. Beardman, I guess my number one gripe of Beardman, you're going to see in my video. I can't really give it away. But Beardman exaggerates whenever something is in his favor. And whenever something is in his face, not in his favor, it doesn't exist. He just pushes it under the rug. And a truth seeker doesn't push inconvenient facts under the rug. A truth seeker doesn't exaggerate their side, and then when they see something contradictory, they just shove it under the rug. I have evidence he did do that, has done that, continues to do that. The guy blocked me on Twitter, and I don't care. I mean, I think it's funny because we never had a single conversation. We never tweeted each other. I never tweeted about him. He never tweeted about me. I never talked to him. He never talked to me. I don't know who he is. He doesn't know who I am, at least in the context of 1 month before his documentary came out. He followed me. I didn't know who he was, never heard of him. I was like, okay. And I can't remember if I followed him back or not. Maybe he was offended that I didn't follow him back, but I never heard of him at the time. I only heard of him after the documentary came out. So then when the documentary comes out, I watched it. And I was like, it's interesting. I'm like, who is that guy? So I check on Twitter who he is, and it says he's blocked me. And then when I see that, I remember him following me a month prior. See, he was a very forgettable guy. He's just a random, hipster with a beard. He's the Hollywood scene. He's a Hollywood scene guy, and it wouldn't
Does
take.
he have like a very curly mustache and stuff, and like a very well waxed and groomed beard?
Yeah, definitely wax, beard wax, and from what I can tell, I don't know, but. I mean, I don't know. I thought I was actually, this is my pure, true intention. I was going to say, hey, that's an interesting documentary. I thought it was pretty cool. That's literally why I tried to find his name on Twitter. I was going to compliment his documentary. And the second I find out that he blocked me, I was like, that's weird. Now I remember him following me. That's who that guy was. So for some weird reason, he followed me. Some weird reason, he blocked me. I made one Bob Lazar video a couple of years ago. He might have watched it, but my theory of him blocking me is either he watched my Bob Lazar video where I talk about the UFO magazine article, and I just read it, and it said he was arrested for pandering.
Pandering, yeah.
And I was just reading it verbatim And the reason I made the reason I made a video on that UFO magazine article is because one of my Patreon patrons said, make more UFO videos. And I was in a used bookstore and I saw a really old, we're talking like 1990, 91 UFO magazine. And I bought it and I saw Bob Lazar. That's why I bought it. I opened it. I saw Bob Lazar. I bought it. I took it home. Didn't know it was going to talk about his pandering. I thought he was going to talk about his UFO story. And I was like, I already spent the money. Let's just do the video, even though it's just on that. And my UFO fan of a Patreon patron said, more UFO videos. And that's my only motivation for making that video. And
Interesting.
it's not necessarily a great Bob Lazar video. It's just talking about one article in UFO magazine. Probably an article.
It's an obscure yeah.
Probably an article Bob hates. And maybe he saw that video. And my other theory is he followed me. My other theory is that he followed me on Twitter for a month, or I don't know how many weeks until he unfollowed me and blocked me, but he probably heard me talking about ghosts and demons and spirits and ghost hunting and demons and demons and demons. And if he's a Hollywood hipster, he doesn't believe in demons. So he doesn't want to read tweets about demons. So that might be why he blocked me. Those are my two guesses.
Good point. Okay, yeah.
I don't care. I'm not offended. It's not a big deal. But the Hollywood types are going to worship UFOs and aliens because they don't believe in anything else. And that's kind of a sad perspective, but I think that's pretty accurate. I'm open to flying saucers existing. I just have never seen one. I've never seen one land. I'm extremely skeptical of Roswell for many different reasons. People would say, oh, you don't believe in Roswell for superficial reasons. But I happen to have an email from a guy who personally knows the lawyer of the great-grandson who is trying to get an entertainment lawyer to sell a story of them still having a piece of the craft hidden away. But if they did have a piece of the craft hidden away, they wouldn't need an entertainment lawyer to tell that story.
Good point.
That's one of the ways these paranormal people get away with lying. They get an entertainment lawyer and they say it's 100% for Hollywood, for entertainment. I'm an actor and I'm just acting that I have the... So that is one piece of credibility for Bob Lazar. He doesn't have an entertainment lawyer that I know of. That's one piece of credibility, I guess. But him connecting with a Hollywood hipster doesn't help his case at all.
And wearing the Breaking Bad shirt. I mean, or the even if it looks like the Breaking Bad, the bromide shirt. I
would say the worst move Beardman has made for Bob is booking him for Secure Team 10. That channel is a known super hoax channel. I mean, that channel cranks out hoaxes, and then Bob wants to go on. I'm sure Bob didn't research the channel. I didn't even know
they did interviews. Did they do interviews?
They do interviews.
Did they CGI Bob Lazar? I mean,
they do interviews with fake UFO witnesses. As far as I know, that's it. Just actors they hire. Like they hire actors on Craigslist to say, "Hey, say you saw a UFO," so we can put it in there. But I wouldn't be surprised if he gets his "I saw UFO" from Fiverr. He pays $5. But the interview was very low quality audio. It sounded like Skype audio. It sounded like they did an interview via Skype. And I only listened to 1 minute of it. I could only stand 1 minute. I'd probably have to go through and listen to the whole thing. I can't stand that guy's voice.
What's his name, Tyler?
A lot of people can't stand my voice, so I'm sure.
I hate my own voice. I hate my voice.
Tyler sounds like he has braces and that he's spitting every time he talks. And it gets kind of annoying. It gets annoying after. It gets annoying after a while.
Look at this. If you zoom in, it's kind of like a. Look at the wings. Look at the wings. If you look at the wings, this is not very strange. Yeah, it's very. I don't know. I think it's hilarious, but you're right. Like it's kind of like a bizarre comedy, and I think you could make a really funny skit, or like just making fun of this whole field is just it's too bad because there are legitimate researchers like you and like people that work like Steve Cambion and other people out there who really work to like find out what the truth is, you know, and really do good work, whether it's old school calling up phones and FBI offices.
I could tell you a weird thing about spirits is I've walked up and down Hollywood Boulevard like 100 times because I'm an idiot, right? But there's definitely spirits on Hollywood Boulevard. I know because of this device and because of my gut instincts. And they're trickster spirits. They found it hilarious. And they beeped only when they thought a star would be a funny thing to beep at. They beeped at Roseanne Barr. They thought it's almost like they set me up. See, Roseanne Barr was in
exactly right.
Roseanne Barr was in super hot water when I made that video. But the spirits that set it off knew that my video would look fake by going off on top of her star. But they they went off on the RuPaul's star. And every time they thought he was a funny star, they went off. And when I was like 10 feet away from the neon sign, they went off, making me think he was the neon sign. I could just tell you this much. As much as you think I'm crazy for walking up and down Hollywood Boulevard for 2 hours straight with this and a camera, even the Scientologists working there were like, that guy's crazy. I'm not joking. The Scientologist security were like, what the heck is that guy doing?
Wow, that's awesome. That is so cool.
But I walked up and down, all right? And we're talking only 2 weeks later, I get an email from a Hollywood TV show.
Really?
2 weeks later, a Hollywood connection, the Travel Channel. That's when that Travel Channel thing happened.
Wow.
Did the spirits have anything to do with that? I could tell you it's the first time I've ever investigated Hollywood Boulevard, and I immediately get a contact via email. So I thought that was really weird that maybe the spirits have some weird ass Hollywood connections. You have to be vetted by the spirits.
Wow.
Maybe the spirits thought I was funny, like I was hilarious, like I was some type of jester, you know, to laugh at.
Or that you could sell your soul to them.
I mean, I would never do that in a million years. I know. They know that. But most people don't know they exist. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
it's true.
Norm Macdonald made a joke on his Netflix show where he said, I went to the president of Hollywood. And they laughed. Haha, there's no president of Hollywood. But maybe there is. These freaking spirits. I don't know, man. I thought it was weird.
Oh, yeah. He talks about the president of Hollywood, like, contacting the spirit or something. I forget exactly what he says.
No. He's just talking about it as a joke. It's a punchline for a joke.
No, but there's some comedian that talks about the president of Hollywood.
Oh.
Like actually manifest. I forget exactly who. I don't want to talk out of turn, but without knowing exactly what I'm talking about. So, well,
all I can say is next time I go to Hollywood, I'm going to do the same thing and see if it happens again. Just might as well try. Yeah. I'm not going to sell my soul or anything. I could tell you this. I was huge into cryptocurrency, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I bought tons of chain link crypto when it was... Yep. I started buying it when it was $1.50. All right. It shot up to $4.50. You got to understand.
Wow.
If you buy $1,000 of it at $1.50 and it shoots up to $4.50, that's a lot of money. You just like
450%. Yeah.
You know, extremely, that's a lot of money. And I was going to sell on that day of $4.50, but I was busy with an extremely elaborate event that day. I could not even get to a computer that day. But anyway, I did end up selling close to the 4th of July. Not because I thought he was going to go down, or maybe I did, but I think I sold it $3 and something. So I still made some profit. All right. I sold
That's
it.
good. Wow.
I sold it 3 something. I bought it 150, sold it 3 something. So yes, I did at least make some profit before I got out. But and I sold because I wanted to. And I said I would never
Right.
tell. Should I tell this story? I don't know if I should tell. I'm not a Bob Lazar scenario where I'm saying, oh, I don't know if I should tell him if I got 115. I don't know.
Just say it. I think.
But this is an actual true ghost story that just happened to me a couple weeks ago. And maybe I should tell it. I can elaborately recreate it. I'm thinking I probably should reenact it. But it's freaky. It's a freaky ass story.
What happened?
Okay. So it's kind of like a horror movie. All right. You know how I told you in the last live stream how there's a spirit in my house that tries to contact me via the kids' toys?
Yes.
Specifically
yes.
that square, the square triangle. Oh, even that truck with the lights.
But the square. Yeah.
That truck with the lights was a singular time it ever did the truck with the lights with me that I know of. I went to the parent of the kid who owns the truck, and I said, does this thing go off on its own by itself over and over? And she said, I don't know. So she didn't experience that. And I did get a couple comments on that video saying, fake. This is so fake. See, I was suffering from an extreme sunburn, which has like half my face peeled off type sunburn. And so you can't even see it in the video because the video is low resolution. So yes, I was concerned about sunburn, whatever. And some people said he was fake. That truck going off, first of all, I got home, I walked in that room, saw nothing unusual, walked in my room, probably checked my email or something, and then I wanted to get a drink, and I went into the kitchen, and I saw the truck going off by itself. I went in my room, grabbed my camera, and then filmed it. That actually happened. Maybe my response, I said stupid during the video because I was saying the spirit is freaking stupid by setting this crap off. I just thought he was dumb. It's a dumb move. Basically, I have over $3,000 of ghost investigation equipment.
Wow. You know,
I'm gonna be sending this one in to get fixed because the antenna broke off. But what are you gonna say?
That's cool. Question. Remember that investigation that you did? What was it? The OK Corral?
Mm-hmm.
Or that, and you went downstairs and there was that gift shop and you did an investigation. And you got a spike from a certain pit. And I said, there's something about that I'm not going to say anything about, but I think you'll figure it out eventually. And you did. It's that the spirits want to see you, put you in a particular perspective of which you can capture something either on your camera or through your eyes and visually through your eyes. And it's a perspective. It's like they want you to see through your eyes and they want you to see this exact perspective or something like that. And I think that's what was going on. Yeah, I think that's maybe what you're saying is going on with Hollywood as well. Right? Is that they want you to see a certain situation. You know what I mean? I don't know if that makes sense, but that's what I think. Like, for example, like I think I have to get exactly what it was, but there was a spot where if you remember in the hot spot in the OK Corral gift shop underneath, when you're talking to those ladies, and then you go in like a corner, and I think you get a spike, and you might even get an EVP. I'm not sure exactly. I have to go rewatch it, but it's very interesting. That was one of the more. I don't think many people caught on to that, but that for me, that was like, that's interesting, because I think spirits like to see things through your eyes, or like to grab your attention visually, or at least intellectually, curiosity and stuff. It's very creepy. It's very creepy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know. Theory, hypothesis.
Yeah. So no, that's a good theory. It's a good. I'll definitely focus. I'll remember that.
I'll try to.
But not too many people I know have 2 millimeters. You know, these are 2. This is the top possible version, and this is the second highest version. And the antenna broke off due to use, because I used it so much. The antenna broke off just from wear and tear, because I've used it that much. But I'm gonna mail it back. I have to mail it out. I have to fill out a form and mail it back. But
Is there a warranty on it?
No. I didn't get it directly from them, so it's no big deal. I got these both on auction sites. This one was from a pawn shop.
Oh, cool.
And I was anticipating, maybe if it's been used for a couple of years, there's a theory that when spirits walk through something, they can leave a trace of themselves behind. I don't know, some type of Horcrux thing going on. I don't know if that's true, but could be creepy, Anyway, my point is, I have thousands of dollars of ghost investigation equipment. I have thousands. All right, I mean, just at arm's length, I have this thing here with two of these guys inside of here.
Whoa.
Two of those guys. Even the ghost hunters, or the ghost adventures guys, they only have one of them, and they got the version that makes a noise. And it goes, beep! And they're like walking through a super haunted room, and there's a demon in the corner going, "Arr!" And they're trying to get the demon EVP, and they're going, and it goes beep, and it destroys their audio. So buy the version with no audio, and there's no problems there. I'm lucky I didn't get the audio version. But anyway,
those are cool. Yeah.
I have like $3,000+ of ghost investigation equipment. And the spirits that know I'm a ghost investigator, they come and check me out, and I never turn any of my devices on in my house, ever. And the last time I turned on this device in my house was during the interview with the Travel Channel. The Travel Channel lady interviewed me via FaceTime. And I was like, I never turn this stuff on in my house ever, because I don't want to be bothered by spirits. You know what I mean? And she was like, okay, whatever. And I did turn on the REM pod feature. I turned it on and I showed her what it does. And I probably shouldn't have, because I didn't get the job. Anyway.
Right. Yeah. Well, Jack Osborne.
The spirit, you said Jack Osborne might have got my job. I don't think it would have worked. I don't think it would have worked that way, because she said it was a 3-team. She said they were looking for an Egon, and I would have been the third.
Really?
She said the 2 other people have already been chosen. We're looking for a third. And I don't think that's Jack's show.
Oh, cool.
I don't think that's Jack's show. Interesting. She said, we're also looking for someone that can invent new ghost equipment. And that's actually the first thing she asked me. And I'm like, I'm a YouTuber that does stuff, but sure, I have some lights in the background. And yes, I have been working on a few things. But it's not like the movies. You can't just crank out the movie Ghost Busters with the female cast. The inventor character, she's literally like on screen with the other Ghost Busters the whole time, right? And then like 1 second later, she's like, "Hey guys, I just made this." But you were on screen with them the whole time. How'd you make it? So that's my biggest gripe with that movie. Not the cast, just kind of the script, I guess. I don't know, but
I liked it. I liked it. I thought it was I think it might have even been like aware that it was.
It was pretty funny. Yeah. It was pretty funny. I mean, there's funny parts.
I love Kristen Wiig. I love the SNL cast, all those ladies, Kate McKinnon, I think her name is. She's like really great.
The Thor character, he was pretty funny. So anyway,
I don't like him. I don't actually hate him.
Okay,
Hemsworth, I don't like him.
Hemsworth. So anyway, this is a convoluted setup for a story, but there's a spirit who's obsessed with trying to contact me, but it can't. because I never turn this stuff on. So
Right.
it does so with my nephew's toys. And
Okay.
that's pretty freaky, right? So
No,
anyway,
it's very common. Yeah.
I was making ramen and it said square 20 times in a row. And it talks kind of like Stephen Hawking, but it's less robotic. It's kind of like square, square, square.
Yeah.
And it said it 20 times in a row. That's when I knew of a surety for a fact that there's a spirit doing it. Because previously it said diamond every time I turned on the light. But now,
wow. Okay. Yeah.
When it said square 20 times in a row, I pulled the batteries out. So anyway, I associate that toy with the square and the rectangle and the triangle and all the shapes.
Mhm.
I associate that and that voice with the spirit, which is a big mistake. Apparently. Big mistake. Because like a horror movie, this is what happened.
It's going to take on that image. Yeah.
This is what happened. So I'm about to go to sleep one night. This is the night that Link was about $3.75. It's already on its way down, and I was like, maybe it'll get back up to $4.50. And it didn't. It's now at $2.45 last I looked at it. Pretty far down. So I was like, maybe should I sell it? Should I keep it? I kind of want to just get it at the $4.50 where it was,
Right.
But I was like, I don't know. I don't know if I should sell it or not. So I'm about to go to sleep. I turn off the light. This was literally a few weeks ago. All right.
Mm-hmm.
I turn off the light. I put my head on the pillow. And I had a dream 1 second after putting the head on the pillow while I was not in the REM state.
Mm-hmm.
You can't have a dream when you're not in the REM state. That's
good point.
Not normal. All right.
It's not natural.
Wide awake. It's not natural. It's supernatural. It's not normal. It's paranormal.
Right.
So what happened was I turned off the light, put my head on the pillow. The spirit literally waited until I was sleeping, not even
second.
realizing that I wasn't asleep yet. I was still wide awake, just 1 second. So the spirit was so anticipating giving me a message, and this is the first time it's ever happened. So you can't tell me I'm a nut job that gets messages. No, this says never happened to me ever. So I can't even compare it because this is the first time it's ever happened a couple of weeks ago.
Right.
So I put my head on the pillow, still wide awake. All right. I get a dream. The dream is about 5 seconds long. And the dream is a dream flashing in my head. It feels like a dream, looks like a dream, but it's a vision more than a dream. But it's definitely a visual message. It looks like a dream, seems like a dream. But after the dream, I open my eyes and I'm like,
were you wide awake?
I'm not sleeping. And I was wide awake. So after the 5 second dream, I opened my eyes and was like, I'm not even in the dream state.
How much time had gone by?
Oh, 0 seconds have gone. But
like in reality,
in reality, I never went to the dream state. I never went to anything. This spirit put a vision in my head for 5 seconds long. And this is what the vision was. The vision was that child's board, my nephew's board, that kid's board. That kid's board flashed in my head for 5 seconds. And like a horror movie, it was like in the corner of the room, like in the dark. It was in the corner of a dark room with like maybe a gleam of light on it, so you could barely see it. So it puts it up like maybe in my house. If I went to look for it, maybe it's actually in that corner. I haven't looked for it. It's kind of too freaky for me to even look for it. But when I find where it's located, it's probably shoved in some corner. So this is how it flashed in my head. I see my nephew's board in the corner of the room, just barely light flashing enough for me to see it. And it speaks in the voice from the board. in the dream.
Saying diamond, square,
In the
rectangle.
dream. And it says 2 words. It says, in the voice of Diamond, it says, so Link. It said,
No way.
It said,
No
sell.
way.
It said, sell Link. 2 words.
No way. That's
No joke.
Wow. No, but
So
that makes sense. Wow. Okay.
it was telling me to sell my Link. I wasn't talking out loud, but it saw me search and wonder, should I sell it?
Well, it can also read your thoughts, John. You know what I mean?
I mean, it didn't have to read my thoughts. It
To
could
a
just
certain
It
extent.
could just
No,
watch
but it
me.
can do that.
All I can say is this: 24 hours later, I didn't sell because I was like, I'm not going to take the advice of a spirit.
Of a demon, right? Yeah.
I'm not going to take the advice of potentially a demon. I'm not
Right.
going to do what it tells me to do, because the next dream will say, go on a
Kill
rampage,
yourself.
go on a rampage.
Yeah,
You know,
right.
who knows?
Yeah.
Anyway, 24
Right.
hours later, I was like, not going to do it.
Good.
And then
Yeah.
48 hours later, I saw Link continue to do this. And I was
Oh,
like, okay, I'll
tanking.
sell it. I'll sell it.
Mike, your mic. Yo, you need to go back on. Yeah, fix your mic. You kind of busted out. Just right as you're talking about that, too. Very interesting.
Testing,
Right as you're talking
testing,
okay, good. You're all good.
testing.
You're good.
Can you? All right.
You're back.
Wow. I
Yep.
wonder if that is spirit related. We don't know. You know what I mean? All I can
Well, it looks
say
like
is
you bumped it, but
no, I didn't touch it.
you didn't?
I'm very
Okay.
mindful of it. But
Careful. Yeah.
so I didn't
All right, so sell Link.
the first 24 hours, but 48 hours later, I sold saying, this is my decision to sell, not anyone
Whoa.
else's. So it
Wow.
perhaps was giving me some insight, because ever
Hey,
since
hold on. Was it in the? It was in the voice of that.
it was in the exact voice, the robotic electronic voice of the board. Exactly. So not only does it know that I associate it with the board, but it knows that I associate the voice with it. And spirits, I've noticed spirits have a hard time talking. They keep things short and concise if they do. And 2 words is not beyond a spirit. But flash in a dream is crazy. That's unusual.
Scary. But it's not uncommon, unfortunately. Like, I mean, we know that they do that.
The freaky thing
they give you
is,
visions. Wow.
The freaky thing is, that's the first time and last time it's ever happened. Ever. And man, it's pretty freaky. Pretty freaky. I know I said I wouldn't tell the story, but it happened.
seconds.
True story. A 5-second dream of seeing a toy in the corner of the room that I could barely see, and then it spoke in the voice, but it didn't say diamond or square. It said
Link.
It said so Link. That's all it said. Very freaky. Very freaky.
Whoa. Wow. That is, see, now people, anyone that doubts the intelligence of spirit entities, just look at, I mean, it's an interesting experience like that, where obviously there's an intelligence behind what's going on. You know, and like, I'm sure you've heard of people making, and if Sam was here, he would tell us he's probably made pacts with demons to get fortune and things like that, you know?
Well,
there are people that do that.
Well, don't assume that just Sam with Sam. He's not here to defend himself. He's not here to defend himself.
Listen, I know Sam. He's okay. He'll forgive me. But like someone like E.A. Coetting, okay, like we'll say, like, you know, I mean, granted it's a clickbaity video, but it will say, like, you know, the money and riches of this person or this demon and that. This demon made my life a living hell, you know, or like whatever. You know, but like they all have like that Hereditary movie where it's those people have that cult that they intend to get riches from, you know. A lot of it has to do with that wealth issue. So I wonder if there's something to the fact that it was trying to lead you on to actually making money for you, so that you would listen to that voice more. Well, if you will.
Just to defy it, I
didn't do it.
I did it 48 hours later, not 24 hours. And then
Good.
after selling it, I bought a little bit of it back, and I regret
Good.
buying it. I regret buying it because I lost like $100, but at least I didn't lose $1,000. So you know, I made a couple
thank the
bucks.
demons. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah,
Like a spirit can't. A spirit, from what I know, they can't say dig a mile east and half a mile south. I'll show you the coordinates. They can only communicate with minimal words, and that
Okay.
was an opportunity where it tried to. You're right. Maybe try to hook me in. I don't know, but he was super. The vision was super horror movie. I'm gonna have to take a photograph of it in a corner of a room, a dark room, and barely show it. And I'm gonna have to try to recreate the voice and just give you an example of exactly what it looked like. You will see how creepy it was. Just think of getting that
it lighting
dream.
up?
What?
Was it lighting up, or was it lighting up like with lights?
It didn't light up at all. It just showed me that image and gave me the voice from that toy.
Spell link. Ooh.
Yeah, it's pretty freaky. It
No
knew.
thanks. Yeah.
I mean,
never had that.
People might say it's my subconscious, but I don't think so.
That's a easy way to explain everything, and it doesn't make sense that it happened as soon as you put your head down. I've had that experience.
I can do
my head down.
Okay.
And
I can do. I can do one ghost investigation experiment if you think it's all right.
Yeah.
This happened literally yesterday or the day before. I was turning these lights on, right? And I turned them all off, right? And one of them keeps turning itself on by itself.
Oh, really?
I'm pretty sure it's a spirit that did it. It was.
Is it a specific one?
It was either these three or these three.
It's very cool.
People would say it's glitchy, but I guess I can give it a shot. It's not. It could be technological, but I had a sense it was probably a spirit. So I'm going to turn this one off. Okay, off.
Okay.
I'm going to turn this one off. Off. I'm going to turn that one off. And this is the only remote control. All right. Yeah. I'm going to put it right here so you can see it. There it is. I'm not touching it. That's the only remote control. I'm not touching anything. If one of those turns on, it might have been a spirit doing it. I mean, it's a creepy experiment.
Well, what about the keyboard? The keyboard's kind of touching it.
Okay. I mean, where do you want me to put it? Where do you want me to put it?
Like maybe on the coffee cup or something, like near the mouse.
Okay. I'll put it on the coffee cup right there.
There you go. Okay. Yeah.
This,
if it was on the keyboard, it could possibly.
This is the only controller I have on the coffee cup, not touching it.
All right.
It would be interesting to see. I mean, I'm not going to put my feet up, but my feet are not touching anything. But I just.
Yeah.
It was either the bottom one or the top one. I can't remember. It constantly kept turning on by itself to the point where I was.
Is that why you took it down? Kind of? Because you didn't want to interact? Okay.
Nah. It's just I wanted to change the scenery, you know.
I didn't know you've kept it. That was really cool.
Yeah.
Pyramidal.
I guess I did. I had to move tons of stuff because I had like tons of stuff on top of this counter. But I had to clear it up. So I ordered this Area 51 shirt. And I ordered the sign, and they both got here exactly in time to do it, to use it for the video. But I did use some clips of when I used my other shirt, my expose shirt.
Is that the cucumber lime Gatorade? That's my favorite. Or is that the lime?
I gotta try that one out. That sounds better than this.
Oh, that's it's so good. It's my favorite.
This is green apple. And green apple is good until you try 5 of them, and it's like it's hurting my tongue. It hurts my tongue.
You gotta dilute it. Yeah. No, the cucumber lime is really this. It's very. I don't think they're making it anymore. So get it while it lasts. It's probably my favorite Gatorade. Very refreshing. You wouldn't think so. Anyway, sorry, way off topic.
So
Back to
I'm
spirits.
using the mouse. The mouse is way too close to that coffee cup. But
So
let's see if we got any questions.
yeah,
Are there any questions in the chat?
Who we
Because
got in
we're
the
going
live
to
chat?
end. Oh my gosh, we got to end this like in 10 minutes. Is that okay?
yeah, of course. I mean, I just had to see this balloon up here.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you can read it.
Okay, I can't. Let me see.
Hold on.
It says girl. It's a girl, right?
Mm-hmm.
Wow,
So
congratulations.
it's not a fake. Thank you. Yes.
So Brandon had a baby girl. Wow, that's awesome. I
Well,
forgot
my
to.
girlfriend did, not me.
I mean, you had it.
Yeah.
Like the
It
movie
was that-
Twins. Or no, like the movie, not the movie
Movie
Twins. That's
Twins.
the movie Twins. But the movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger called,
Yeah.
what's that
I'm
called?
having a baby or
I'm
something.
having a
Or
baby. Yeah.
Something. Yeah. Yeah. What is it? It's like Dad of the Year or something. I forget. I forget
Yeah.
the name of it. But yeah, he has. But you know what's beautiful is the Santa Barbara Cottage Hospital. It's like a hotel. There was a farmer's market going on in the middle of the atrium, it's beautiful. It's so beautiful out here. It's just like I'm so lucky I'm blessed to be here with the baby. So it's
Mhm.
great, walking around. Had the Mesa Burger tonight, which is one. Check out Mesa Burger. They're not sponsored, but they should be. Okay, let's look at the questions here. Michelle. Oh, what's up, Michelle Embry?
Okay.
Yeah, Oswald Smangler in the chat. Nice. Yeah, he's a smart guy. What do we got? Let's see.
Someone asked me if your daughter is going to become a YouTube streamer. I mean,
Nope.
I wouldn't recommend that.
Nope, definitely not. Definitely not.
Don't do that. No.
Not gonna happen.
No,
No.
I mean, man, if my kid wanted to be a Twitch streamer or a YouTube streamer, I'd say, nah, it's not worth it.
Yeah.
It's
Look at
not
Pequena
worth
Stewart. Yeah.
I would say get out and try horseback riding or something.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what I would say.
Okay, I didn't even see that question, but let's see.
I think
It's a
that
girl,
question
yes.
was like a private message. I don't know.
Oh, I didn't see it.
Okay, someone asked me, Bob Lazar, 50% telling the truth or what? Well, I mean, after finding out that EG&G is a subcontractor with Area 51, or they hire some employees, after finding out the doctor said he knows his supervisor. Now, that doctor would almost have to provide proof he knows the supervisor, but I guess if I took his word for it, I think Bob Lazar was in Area 51, even though that went against my original theory. But I think he had a menial job there, like radiation screening for all the employees. I think he talked to the employees to the point where he learned the Wednesday night schedules, which would be something that would be extremely non-classified for fellow Area 51 employees. So when they fly the jets. Not
even
the
airport knows. Yeah.
Not that big a secret. And they are jets, and they're stealth jets, and that's it. They're not flying saucers. They're stealth jets.
They're stealth? Are they stealth? I didn't know that.
I mean, they test flew the Aurora before it became public knowledge, exclusively at Area 51. That's not a secret now. There it is. It's not a big deal. But the lights that Bob Lazar and his friends filmed, they're using a camcorder from 1989, okay? The zoom capabilities makes everything look like a rainbow of nothing, okay? When you get one of those 1989 camcorders and zoom in, a star looks the same. An airplane looks the same. And to assume, I can see the shape it's not the shape of anything. It's the shape of a low quality camera zooming into a light that's very far away.
Exactly.
They're all going to look exactly the same. As far as the bouncing around, oh my gosh, did you see that maneuver? Here's my recreation of the maneuver. Someone holding a camera and it shakes a little bit. When you film an airplane,
So true.
unless you have it on a tripod, it's always going to be bouncing all over the place. I've been filming stars and airplanes and the moon for many years. Unless it's on a tripod, no matter how steady your hand is, it's always going to bounce all over the place.
Absolutely. It's true.
All I see is a jet bouncing due to an unsteady camera from 1989. I see zero evidence of it being a flying saucer. And it's not a UFO. It's just a jet test flight on a Wednesday night, Area 51 standard procedure. And I think he could have got the information from a truck stop, a gas station, a burger joint of locals that talk about the rumors. If you go to Rachel, Nevada,
Also,
and talk to the locals long enough, they're going to tell you what they know about Area 51. They'll tell you.
oh yeah.
So even though he claims that's his biggest evidence, or at least his fans claim that's his biggest evidence, the test flight schedule, that works against it to me.
In my opinion, yeah.
Yeah, because
'Cause
anyone...
I knew that because like I've seen like they have footage of the planes actually leaving the airport and and touching down in Area 51, right?
Yeah, I mean,
and they're not stealth; they're like commercial 747s, but they don't have like American Airlines on it.
but
or
he
whatever.
could have
It's
worked there. He could have worked there, and he could have got the test flights. But the flying saucers in secret hangars on the side of the mountain, I
That's
can't
kinda
buy
cool.
that. I can't buy that
But it's
because,
cool. Yeah.
first of all, there's a mine that's very close to these super secret UFO hangars. There's a
Interesting.
mine called the Kelly Mine, owned by a family for 100 years.
Oh wow.
If that family wanted to, they could get on the top of the mountain of their mine, which they owned, and they could have tried to zoom in and find the hangars and film it. But they probably didn't want to go near the area because it's radioactive. And
Good point.
it is true that the government recently seized the Kelly mine, and they bought it or they took it from the
Eminent
family
domain. Yeah.
because it is very close to Area 51 and the bombing
That's
ranges
typical.
of Papoose Lake. So that's unfortunate. There's another mine close to Papoose Lake as well. And you can run amok with conspiracy theories that there's underground for 100 miles of tons of reptilians and insectoid aliens. And John Lear's favorite story is how praying mantis alien was walking down the hall one day at Area 51 or S4. Maybe it was S4. So this praying mantis is like, I'm just walking around. I'm just a praying mantis alien. No big deal.
Yeah.
And there was a new guard on watch in the hallway. And it was his first day or whatever. Maybe it was his first alien sighting. So this guard with an M16, he's like, I'm patrolling the place. And then the alien's like, hey, guard, how's it going? And the praying mantis alien is like, what's up, dog? And the guard died with a heart attack. He dropped dead.
No.
Because they didn't tell him there's aliens at the facility. So he died of a heart attack being freaked out.
Hold on. A trained killer who's at Area 51 with an M16 who's looking around and like some sneaky mantid. Come on, man. Have you ever heard Dan Bursch?
John Lear
is nuts.
Tells that story as if it's gospel. And it's, I don't know, man.
I think John Lee is crazy and he's just an old man that's just playing a prank. He has nothing better to do with his life. He's retired and he's just kind of I love the whole pilot gung-ho flying the birds and David Crosby and doing a barrel roll and saving their lives and being the son of the guy who invented the Lear jet, which revolutionized air travel and private jets and the cocaine trade and amongst everything, the drug trade. So I mean, you know, I give him credit, and he has flown a legitimate amount of times and many different capacities. But I think he's crazy. Like he believes that, like, you know, certain things on the, I'm not going to say the name, but because I think it's disrespectful, and I was there 2 days after it happened, that these things that got blown up on a certain day were done by holograms from satellite dishes.
Oh
or
my
whatever,
gosh, I
you
saw
know?
that. I saw that. He said that they were hologram planes.
Hmm.
That is so disrespectful. I mean, I've
It's like,
seen, yes, I understand. There's a guy that has the most views on those type of videos, and it's clickbait. It gets the views, and conspiracy people love it. But I consider that a very tragic day, and
absolutely.
I don't know the science, but I can tell you if that happens, chances are incineration is a possibility. Why don't these individual conspiracy theorists, why don't they believe in incineration? It's
Good point.
a great possibility that there's nothing left because
Yeah.
the temperatures and everything else. But
The physics, just the natural physics of the whole thing. Mick West, who was on Joe Rogan. I got to give Joe Rogan credit for having Mick West. This guy, Mick West. He was the. I contacted him on Twitter. He doesn't have a very big following. He has a book called Escaping the Rabbit Hole, and he helped invent and create Tony Hawk skateboarding video game. And so he's like a retired guy, and all he does is debunk stuff. And he has a website called MetaBunk or whatever, but he debunks chemtrails. He says they're all contrail science. He has a website called Contrail Science. And he just debunks like flat Earth. He goes way out of his way to, show satellites and just like homemade experiments that he does. And he's gone way out of his way with the Twin Towers to show that the physics actually makes sense. It's just the weird angle of a camera angle that makes it look like, certain things, and people think, oh, it must have.
I've seen a lot of dumb conspiracy theories. Even one said, oh, where is the physical remains? They shipped it to top secret facilities because it proves blah, blah, blah. I was at a park in Nebraska, and there's a huge piece, and you can walk up and you can touch it. You can walk up and you can touch it. A huge mangled piece, and it's very sad, but you can walk up and touch it. What they did was they shipped it out to hundreds of different memorials, and you can find those memorials, and you can walk up and touch it.
Absolutely.
It's very sad, but I saw a huge piece myself, and I touched it. And
people are like, there's no debris. There's a lot of debris. And by the way, all right, some things maybe don't add up, but they're very minor. And it doesn't take away from the fact. I'll tell you something. My professor, his name is James Young, no relation, back in UMass. He was on the 9/11 commission to build the new memorial on the site. Very prestigious, with like Rudy Giuliani was on the commission and all this stuff. And I was one of the first people to see the actual final Freedom Tower that they were going to put in. And I was there 2 days afterwards, Listen, man, like there's no way to explain the reality of something like that. If you were there in the city or around that city, and there's no way that you can deny something like that when you're right there. The only way that you can deny it is from a distance on an internet video where you're looking at it from a skewed perspective for someone that wants you to see a certain thing or a certain way or certain this, or want you to believe a certain narrative for their own stupid purposes. But what reality is that a lot of people died that day.
Yeah, it's really sad.
But
let's change the subject.
Sorry. Yeah.
All right.
Jeez.
So Bob Lazar, I didn't mention this and I haven't filmed it, but any conspiracy fan is going to be familiar with the Dulce Base underground conspiracy
Phil
theory.
Schneider. Yeah.
So the Dulce Base, to me, seems and sounds and feels like the inspiration for Bob Lazar's S4 because I think it predates it. We have to look it up, though. We have to find out if it predates it.
I wonder if it predates it. Yeah, that's a good question.
I don't know. I don't know if it predates it, but I can just tell you when he says that there might be aliens there, but he didn't see them. And Bob Lazar has said that fleetingly, few and far between will he ever mention aliens. But when he does, I think he does like imply there might be a lower level with actual ETs.
That sounds like Dulce.
Sounds exactly like Dulce.
Yes, it does.
Maybe that's why he doesn't mention it anymore, because it's too much like Dulce. I don't know.
Well, also, it's been debunked so bad.
Oh, Dulce? Yeah.
Did you know that? I mean, the guy that came out with it, his name was Phil Schneider. And it's another sad case. Like everyone believed him on the UFO circuit and was like, oh my God, the Dulce base. Like this guy, he fought them and like blah, 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 blah. Well, my friend, not my friend, but a colleague, Joe from the Carolinas. I don't know if you know who that guy is, but he does videos on like UFOs and stuff. But like he does like FOIA requests and stuff like that. For like really follows the data and the logic, and he's actually pretty good. Anyway, he did a FOIA request on Phil Schneider, who's the guy that came out with the Dulce story. If you go up there, and it turns out he was a paranoid schizophrenic that had been hospitalized like 4 or 5 times and ended up killing himself, which is sad. You know what I mean? But like, but he also was like, he kept a radioactive element underneath his bed and like developed like he was just insane. You know what I mean? So he kind of made up the whole thing about Dulce. It's kind of like a big, but you're right. It does sound like Bob Lazar. Like, isn't that interesting? Like there is that crossover. And it's interesting, John, is like, and then you have someone like Corey Good come along the scene, or David Wilcock, who build off of things like the Montauk Project or things like things that had come before. Like Bob
whenever
Lazar.
I hear Montauk Project stuff, I can debunk it from different levels, but new people who don't know about it, they don't know. They don't know how
it's
fake
too
it is.
lost. It's exactly. It's like
the Montauk Project. I interviewed the commander of the Montauk Project of Camp Hero, not the Montauk Project. He said, I interviewed the commander of Camp Hero, Montauk Air Force Base, who worked there in the late 70s, early 80s. The exact time frame Preston B. Nichols said the experiments were at their peak. And he said, he replied to my email. He said, there was nothing there. He said, I've heard about the rumors, but it's just hearsay, just a bunch of nonsense. And I think he said, I asked specifically, were there any experiments? Because I found information saying there might be, have been MK Ultra to an extent with acid.
Really?
And that would explain some crazy stories if that was true. And he said the only drugs he knew about was marijuana. The guy was very open.
That's incredible.
For the commander to be that open, he wasn't hiding anything. He wouldn't even respond to my email if he was hiding something. And then I interviewed a worker. See, I found the Montauk Air Force Base alumni website, which had like 20 emails. I emailed all 20 of them. I only got 2 responses. Smart. The commander and a soldier. And the soldier said, nope, nothing crazy. It's just every day in and out, boring job. Nothing really happened. It's just a radar defense base where they look to see if our enemies are shooting missiles at the United States. It's like it's the first
NORAD.
It's the tip of the iceberg back in the day when radar was so old-fashioned. They had to rely on physical radar buildings. Now we rely on satellites, so it's obsolete. And we don't use it anymore because we rely on satellites. Satellites can show us worldwide where everything is. Yeah. Back then, they used physical radar building bases. Oh, man. Thanks, Brandon. You didn't have to.
Yeah, no problem. I know. I don't.
$9.99, man.
Yeah,
Thanks a lot.
It's coming from my baby's mouth. No, I'm just kidding.
But thank you though, man.
To make you feel bad.
But Montauk, nothing crazy happened. Nothing, except for after researching it for hundreds of hours, I was able to prove there are toxic waste barrels buried underneath Montauk. And when I say underneath, I'm talking about the one storage space they could find. Like, it doesn't go down 20 layers like the conspiracy theories say. It goes down one layer into a basement of concrete enough to fit toxic waste barrels. The government was looking for an obsolete, abandoned place to dump these waste barrels. And Montauk Air Force Base was obsolete, decommissioned, and it was a place they could put these toxic waste barrels. Officially, they are chemical warfare materials. I found it on a .gov website. It's official. It's legit. And it's the reason they have one security guard there working at protecting kids from breaking in. There's one security guard. Maybe there's two security guards. But there's a couple security guards they hire so kids don't break in, get sledgehammers, break the concrete, find the toxic waste barrels, and die immediately. It's the only reason they have the two security guards. Yet, oh no, the security guards are proof of time travel underground. So the Montauk Project is a huge story from what I would have to say. Preston B. Nichols. He was a tall tale teller, to put it as nice as I can. Rest in peace.
You think? Yeah.
Rest in peace. But he was a tall tale teller, and that's what he did professionally. He did tinker, and he was probably amazing with electronics and sound equipment and this and that here and there. But there was no Montauk Project.
Montauk, you could be a Montauk boy.
Everyone was a Montauk boy from Preston's perspective. Preston B.
Nichols, Tim and Eric thing, you know.
What I think is interesting is
Montauk boy.
Preston B. Nichols personally told me on the Montauk Project forums back in the year 1999. Actually, it was 2000 or maybe 2001. Those are the only 3 years the board existed. Then it was taken down. But from 99 to 2001, I was on the Montauk Project forum boards. And Preston B. Nichols was only on there for a few months. So the few months he was on there, people were constantly asking him questions. And he told me personally, oh, you might be a Montauk boy. I'm like, I've never been to the East Coast. Never been to the East Coast. So I can't. But I have
send me a sock. Send me a sock, please.
I have been to the East Coast now. I went to Florida. That's the only.
Oh, that's right.
That's
Orlando.
Recent. That's recent, though, you know.
My just a side note, my cousins are going to and my brother-in-law and stuff or whatever are going to England tonight, or they're already there. They might be there already to see the new Harry Potter, all the whole castle and the whole new stuff. Oh, it's so awesome.
Where's that?
In England, in London, England.
There's a new thing in England.
Oh, John, it puts Wizarding World.
I think I saw one photograph of the front of it. Is it like a museum too?
Yeah, it's a whole castle. It's like you walk into Hogwarts, you can stay in. Oh man, so they're going. Wow. But anyway,
I'm gonna have to go to that. I'm gonna have to check that out.
But East Coast, yeah. I mean Orlando. I think so. You didn't like the butterbeer as much as
my gosh,
California butterbeer.
I think they lost the recipe. And they're like, let's just wing it. And they ruined it. They must have ruined it on accident. There's no way they ruined it on purpose, right?
I don't know.
But the recipes, the Disney, it's not Disney, it's Universal Studios Hollywood. I went to both Disney World. I went to Disneyland and Universal Hollywood. And then I went to Disney World and I went to both, you know. But the Universal Hollywood butterbeer is way sweeter, way richer. It tastes a lot more like butterscotch. You can really taste the butterscotch. I think in Florida, they skimp on the butterscotch to the point where there's 25% butterscotch in Florida and 100% butterscotch in Hollywood. It's
Interesting.
It's that
I mean,
bad of a ratio.
You mean 25% in Hollywood and 100% in Florida?
No, 100% in Hollywood.
Oh, okay.
Hollywood is the good butter beer. Florida is the garbage.
More
butter.
syrup. Okay, gotcha.
But in Florida, it's so watered down, it tastes like nothing. You just wasted your money on nothing.
Yeah.
If you're super hot and you want some water that barely tastes like butterbeer flavored water, that's what you get in Florida. But in Hollywood, I had like 8 glasses in Hollywood. 8.
Whoa.
In Florida, I had 2 glasses because it was that bad. I couldn't stand it. I had 2.
Wow.
Why would I have a second one? I was like making sure how bad it was. It was pretty gross.
Pretty bad. No, but wizarding, I mean, it's still pretty fun. I think the video that you did. You say that you made the time traveler from Beyond the Seven Suns video. What, 12 years ago?
No, 2014. Oh, okay. 5 years ago.
But because like I saw Pyramar in there, and I saw the dragon from Wizarding World.
Well, I added new clips because the original video was just me doing this, and it was so much of me doing this that I decided to slap some of my new videos over it. Yeah,
that's good. Yeah, that's cool. That was really cool, man. I sent that to Wiseblood's brother. And he was like, "Oh, that's pretty dope." He was like, "That's pretty cool." I'm like, yeah, man.
Yeah, you said
he's a big fan of Bob Lazar. Actually, he's not a fan of Bob Lazar, but a fan of like the whole paranormal, coast to coast kind of thing. He doesn't believe Bob Lazar at all. He just like thought that documentary was interesting. Yeah,
like Bob Lazar is selling his UFO drawing or his flying saucer drawing, and he'll sign it.
Oh, that's right.
And I was thinking about buying one, but would he not send it to me because he knows that I don't believe his story 100%? I mean, I don't know. I mean,
worth a shot.
Should I promote him knowing that he's, at least I would have to say, personally speaking, the alien aspect, let's say he read something about aliens.
Right.
That would have been disinformation. That maybe the alien thing is a test. Maybe they gave him an alien brief and people that believe it get fired immediately. Maybe he didn't pass the test,
That's smart. That's a good point. What did Sam say? Like maybe they actually gave him Pine Sol?
Yeah, maybe they gave him Pine Sol.
I can see that happening, man.
Pine Sol would potentially kill you.
Kill him.
You would, you'd probably be vomiting and everything else for a week straight.
Maybe you would be tripping. You know what I mean? Maybe it would be from the poison that's been overtaking your body. You're just like, oh.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I'm definitely not gonna test it out. It's.
I know, right? Yeah. Don't do that at home, everybody.
Do not do that.
If they're just to end. I mean, I probably got to get going soon, but I just want to say thank you, John, for all the hard work. I know you work really hard, tirelessly. Thank you for all the work, and I know it's so frustrating, but hopefully everybody gets to see it because there's some really. It's a mixture of very incredible old school, next level hoax hunter stuff, which everybody loved, but you're beyond that in a way. But it's really great return to form. But you've refined your trade in a way, and it's so good. So the editing and everything is really, really well done. I hope people can see it, but it's also funny. The way, I'm not going to ruin it or spoil it for people, but there's a certain part where it's parodied with a movie, and the psychological aspect of it, and it's just very well done to extreme degree. So I hope everybody gets to see it, and it goes green. So, but I have no control over that. So
yeah. Well, thank you very much. I made the video loud. It's extra loud, and people might say, "Why is it so loud?" But I know that half the people are watching it on phones, and I want them to hear it. And too loud is better than too quiet. Some points I was too quiet, and other points I was loud, and I didn't want people to constantly have to change the volume. So I tried to boost it so that it matched. Maybe I boosted it too much, but I was like, I couldn't unboost it at that point. And so it's loud. It's a loud video. I know it is, but
turn down the volume.
And I tried to throw in more jokes. I have a joke where I reproduce the Wednesday night test flights. And I didn't have time to put it in this one, but that will be in part 2 or 3. I have tons of content. I didn't add it because
too much.
I didn't want a 2-hour video. You have to break it up eventually because it goes on and on. But I have the final edit of part 1. I hope it goes green. We will see what happens. If it doesn't go green, I have to look for one word I said. Maybe it doesn't like when I said that. It's a guessing game. There's no way to know. But I will upload it ASAP right now after the stream. I was waiting for the stream to be over. But thank you very much, Brandon. Thanks for the $9.99.
Thanks, John. Yeah, you got to come up when you come out to Santa Barbara. Put it towards gas.
We can
come out.
Investigate the grist mill.
Look up for that.
I can only show it to people in person. I can't show it online because
I get it.
The Ghost Adventures guys, that interview that I had with the Travel Channel, I greatly suspect it was an investigation on what I got, what I can do,
data mining,
so they can take it on the show. Yeah. I know for a fact they used this on the show. Maybe he watched a couple of my videos and said, "Hey, that's a pretty cool device." And
it happens all the time.
It's not against the rules. You can definitely be inspired, but to be inspired by my tiny YouTube channel, I don't know. I'm just
pretty cool though.
Guessing maybe that happened, but I did make jokes about their live stream so much that people were liking all my jokes I was making. I think Zach Bagans paid attention to that because he's like, "Oh, screw that guy."
Interesting.
I don't know. But I am a fan of Ghost Adventures. I am a fan.
Yeah.
And, if they said join the crew just to hold a camera, I would say yes.
Definitely. Yeah.
But I will take you on the Grist Mill tour. There is legitimately a spirit there. The reason I keep going back is because it's a shy spirit. It's not scary. And it's always there. And it always sets, not this one specifically, but one similar to this, always sets it off 100% of the time. It almost like it's like it, I don't want to demean it. It's definitely an intelligent being. But it's like, okay, there we go. It'll do it once just to say, okay, you want me to do that, whatever.
There you go.
It does it, and that's phenomenal because that's proof that it's there. And that's pretty rare for a spirit to be cooperative.
And for anyone that says it's electromagnetic waves, which I originally was like, okay, maybe, but John's proved that wrong. He's falsified himself by going around Hollywood and being like, okay, maybe there's too much magnetic waves here or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But this is in a rural area where there's
1830.
Nothing.
The closest power lines. The closest power lines are easily a mile away.
There you go.
1830s.
Yeah, exactly. This is California, rural California. Like, I'm not gonna say where, but yeah, it's pretty cool. Pretty cool. And then also there's the mission. I mean, I was almost I drove down when I was driving, I drove down to the mission, but I couldn't find it because I don't know the town yet. You know what I mean? So I was going to get out. I went to UCSB. I don't know if you saw that part. But there's so many cool, like, little areas around here where you could, you can go around. There's a guy that wrote all the haunted Santa Barbara books and the haunted mission books and all this stuff. And he's on Twitter, and I was like, "Hey, are you the guy that wrote these books?" And he's like, "Yep, that's me." That's about it.
Are you moving there permanently?
I'm here now. Yeah. This
Are
is
you
where I
already
am.
moved in?
Yeah, the baby's here and everything. I'm all moved in.
Wow.
Yep. This is
Okay.
it. Yeah.
Well,
This is the place.
I'm moving close to that area.
Awesome. So is my brother is too. He's moving to Thousand Oaks.
Cool.
So
But
yeah.
when I
Where-
move in, I'm sure we'll have time to do a grist
Awesome.
mill investigation.
Definitely.
I haven't had anything negative happen to me. It doesn't follow me home or anything like that.
I'm not
It
scared.
seems like an entity that's stuck there or assigned there. Whatever the case, it doesn't get many visitors. So it is happy to set off the equipment. But even let's face it, when it tried to scare me off the first time I was there. It literally tried to scare me away. And when he was unsuccessful, it was like, okay. It's just weird,
Yeah.
you know. The psychology.
It's like a respect. It's a
it
trying
could be,
to figure out is bizarre. It's
could be
like you
some
never
type of
figure out.
respect. I mean, let's
Yeah,
face it.
yeah.
Most YouTubers are going to say, "What's here, brah? Let's break some bottles and say, screw you, ghost." And they're not going to get a response because there's zero respect. I mean,
exactly. That's
You
so
have-
important.
you have
Like
to be
that's
dead.
why
you have to be dead silent and actually listen. You do have to talk to
Patient.
the thin air. Someone was like, "Why are you talking to yourself this whole video?" There's a legitimate spirit there. I wasn't talking to myself, but I could see it might look that way. But you have to have some faith. I think
Yeah.
people lack faith in the subject.
True.
Don't become
They
a
don't know
ghost.
what faith is.
Yeah, don't become a ghost investigator if you have zero faith. But it could be a faith building experiment. But it can also be the opposite. I could see people having a bunch of ghost experiences and then saying, it's probably just
Psychological or whatever. Yeah.
It's
No,
not,
but at
it's
that
not a
point,
Ouija board. When you buy a bunch of this equipment, it's not a Ouija board and your muscles and psychologically, it's something else. It's something else.
Even a Ouija board, if it's yourself and you're touching it and you're kind of involuntary moving it or whatever, that can happen. I can see that. And there's definitely cons, but what I experienced and what my friend Tom, who is just a normal person, not into anything, he has a family, he just works and that's about it. He's not into any of this. I asked him recently if he remembers this. And he said it was it was insane because we were barely touching the planchette and it was moving on intelligently on its own. And it wouldn't show up when the parents were there. It only showed up later on at night when we were there. So anyway, I think with a lot of cases with Ouija board, it might not be true. I think it is true with in my case, and I think it's true with the exorcist person, whoever it is, that won't come forth. Because if they did come forth, it would be really good for people to, as a warning against, the Ouija board. Because I don't know if people know, but The Exorcist is based on a true story that actually happened through the gateway of, if you will, of the Ouija board. And I've had the same experience, and it's not fun. It's not fun. It starts off fun because you think you're talking to grandma and grandpa, but then you realize, like, it keeps saying, "I'm the devil. I'm Satan. I'm Satan."
Like if I was the guy who the Exorcist story is based on, I would come forth, but maybe he doesn't want the publicity. Maybe he literally wants to escape the devil's scrutiny. But maybe when he gets old enough, maybe he will be able to leave a message, before he goes.
Even an anonymous sort of like memoir or something, just an essay or, because that, in reading the Exorcist book, which is on YouTube, audio for free. It's like a 10-hour book, but it's so well done. It's so well done. They take actual cases of demonic infestation of villages in the Italian 18th century and stuff. The Vatican has records of all this stuff, and it turns out that, like, one case, for example, and this is true, in the village, nobody was giving birth. None of the women were giving birth. It was always a miscarriage. It was always the baby would die.
You gotta cut it short soon, but you can speed up the story just a little bit.
Sorry, yeah, real quick. And so the Vatican, they found out that the women were hexing each other and cursing each other in this village. And so there was a demonic infestation in this village, and they had to be basically cleaned out and exorcise the entire village. Just because a spirit can basically not just assigned to a person, but it's assigned to a plot of land, a city, even a village, even, and so on. So that's it. I'll cut it short.
Wow. So someone said there was audio issues in my video. And yes, I know about the audio issues. I fixed it in the newest version. Maybe the second or third version had audio issues, but it's totally fixed now. I'm going to upload the Bob Lazar video. So stay tuned. I will upload that ASAP. I hope it gets turned green. 100% of my videos are green. All 354 of them. All 354. So that's why I have to keep a perfect record of all green. The second I allow a yellow video to be up, it's a downward spiral. YouTube algorithm pays attention to stuff like that, so you have to follow the rules 100%, which I do. Showing a still image of a movie or TV show and talking about it is 100% okay. I've been doing that for 10 years straight. I know the rules. I know what you can and can't do. Like music. You can play 0 seconds of music from someone else if it's copyrighted by someone else.
Ooh.
Some people think there's a 3 seconds is okay. That's a myth. You can play 0 seconds of someone else's music, which is why I've been making my own music for more than 10 years, but I've been using my own music for over 10 years because it might not be the best music, but I don't have to worry about a strike. And
ever.
So, the song I use in my Bob Lazar video, I made it in 2007 or 2008. It's a really old song that I made it have some echo. So it sounds a little different because there's some echo. I made it with a very simple device, an ES1 Korg and my micro Korg. Those 2 simple devices, musical instruments. But
sounds very cool.
We should do a midsummer review. Someone said you and Brandon should do a midsummer review. Well, I kind of already did a review.
One though, yeah.
But
there are definitely different aspects to explore. I think.
I guess.
Especially, I mean, the whole thing about family and trauma and losing a family and then finding a new family.
I think Hereditary. I think Hereditary is way
scarier.
Way better.
Oh yeah, me too.
Yeah,
I agree.
Someone said, "Oh, daytime horror movies are now my favorite genre." Not mine. It isn't.
It's different. It's different. It's good. It was well done and executed. And
I mean, I don't like horror movies except for suspense movies like The Shining.
It was more of I was going to say it's more of a suspense.
Yeah, it definitely is more suspense. And Jordan Peele says one of the scariest scenes. What scene? Which scene are you talking about?
I know. Yeah,
are you talking about the elaborately created dummy? Yes, the elaborately created dummy is pretty good. I mean, it's done way better than the 80s. It looks so elaborately created, like they put it. It's like they made it in a wax. It's almost like they made it in the wax museum, one body part at one tiny layer at a time.
Yeah,
it's definitely well done from a special effects perspective.
All right, I can see that.
But it's not the scariest scene I've ever seen in my life. Not even close.
What would be one of the scariest scenes that you think you've seen in a movie?
Oh, the scariest scene I've ever seen? Oh my gosh.
Or one of them, yeah.
The scariest scene I've ever seen was in an 80s movie, a 1980s movie, where a guy.
From Beyond?
No. Oh. I don't know the name of the movie because I ran out of the room. It was too scary. So my sister is a horror fan. So this is an 80s corny movie. And maybe if I watched it today, I would laugh. But as a kid, she was like, "Oh, come watch this scary movie with me." I'm like, "Okay." And I'm a kid, all right? And some guy is looking for another guy or maybe a girl. I don't know. He's looking for someone and he runs into a bathroom and he's like reaching underneath the stall of the bathroom.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, "Is anyone there?" And the guy grabs his hand and chops his hand off. Like no hesitation, just like and I'm like, what? And the guy is running around with no hand. And I don't know. I mean, I guess the Texas Chainsaw movies are also super scary. Yeah.
You haven't seen those? Oh man.
No, I saw the original one. That was
Hills
super
has eyes, not good. I'm not a fan of gore.
But I ran out of the room. I'm not a fan of horror movies, you know.
Me either, really. Yeah, I'm not.
So anyone who thinks spirits follow me because I delve into deep evil movies, that's not the case. I prefer comedies. I prefer, you know, a nice romantic comedy from the 80s or something, you know. I'm not big into horror movies at all. I haven't seen any of the Saw movies. I've watched 0 Saw movies because I already know no thanks.
I saw the first one. Yeah.
Okay.
Jigsaw, yeah.
Well, it's almost
right. Well,
2 a.m. We got to get going, but I thank you for
everybody.
us, everybody. I appreciate everyone's support. Patreon patrons, anyone that, you know, you can share your comments on Twitter. Brandon has a Twitter. I got a Twitter. You can check it out. I'll put in the link in the description. And Sam Shadow as well. Appreciate everyone for joining us and be seeing you. Thank you.
Thanks.